Okay. I'd like to welcome you to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of September 28th. We're starting tonight with a public hearing for the Target Corporation special permit site plan text amendment, expansion of existing structure at 7 Stony Hill Road. John, would you please read the legal notice?
Absolutely. So I have a combined legal notice for all public hearings tonight. So to appear September 17th and September 24th, 2021, public notice. The Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on September 28th, 2021 at 7 o'clock using the virtual platform Zoom for the following. Number 7 Stony Hill Road, Target Corporation, map 59, block 095, lot 1, site plan, special permit for a store expansion, text amendment for sections 4.4.d, dimensional standards, and section 6.2.d, modifications of parking requirements. Number 2, 48 Stony Hill Road, / upstream properties 2 LLC, text amendment new, section 5.12, Stony Hill Plan Design Overlay District purpose, nature, location, permitted usage, standards, development, and affordable requirements. The complete application can be found at www.bethel/ct.gov under announcements and land use office. The public may send comments via regular mail and email at landuse@bethel/ct.gov. The link for the application is hyperlink drive google.com for any other information. Thank you, Kitty, excuse me.
Thank you. I'd also like to note for the record that we have the Beth Cavagna, Planning and Zoning Director staff report of September 28th. We also have September 9th, Thomas Galliford, our Fire Marshal report, and September 21st, Thomas Vila, Public Utilities Director, his report, and September 3rd, Ray Boggin of the Bethel Health Department. All of these, and also the Wright and Pierce memo of 9/16/2021. All of these memos are available on our website for anyone to look at. Okay, so I guess we're going to start our meeting. And I think we have, is it Chris Smith?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, how are you?
Hi, Chris. Okay, so you are the applicant. Please let us know what's going on.
Very good. Well, good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the Commission, Ms. Cavagna, Mr. McCullum. For the record, my name is Chris Smith. I am a land use attorney with the law firm of Alter and Pearson, and I appear before you this evening on behalf of the owner applicant, Target Corporation. A few housekeeping matters. The notices that were sent to the neighbors, we returned the copies of the letters and the original mailings to your office, to Beth. And I did send a notice out to Aquarian, even though we're not located in a watershed, just as a protective measure. I usually do that regardless as to whether it's in a watershed or not, but it's not. But we sent it anyways, timely, as required by the statute, as if it were. And then finally, it's my understanding that, as I think you've already indicated, Madam Chairwoman, and with the notice being read, that we will have one public hearing concerning the 3 applications that concern this matter this evening. And in that regard, we do have 3 applications associated with a 13,000 square foot expansion of the Target store located at Stony Hill Road, also known as Route 6 in Bethel. The first application concerns 2 zone text amendments, one involving the computation of maximum commercial floor area for properties located in the Route 6 zone district, and the second text amendment concerning the reduction of required parking in certain circumstances for property located within the Route 6 zone district, subject to special permit review and approval. The second application is a special permit application to actually reduce the on-site parking required for the Target store expansion. And the third is a special permit application for the 13,000 square foot expansion. And it's my understanding that both the special permits have been combined into the one involving the expansion, the 13,000 square foot expansion, and will be taken up together. I'd like to note for the Commission that there was a special permit that was issued It was through a settlement of an appeal, and that was issued back in the early 2000s when the store was constructed. And at that point in time, the special permit approved a 123,000 square foot Target store at the subject property, which, as we all know, has been subsequently built and has been operated for the past 20 years or so. And as you'll hear from our team shortly, there is no new floor sales area being proposed with the expansion that will essentially address fulfillment needs due to the economic conditions. What I'd like to do, with the permission of the chair, Madam Chairwoman, is introduce the team. On behalf of Target Corporation, we have Mr. John Dietrich, Senior Real Estate Portfolio Manager for the Target Corporation. We also have Brendan Roebuck and Mike Youngins, both licensed professional civil engineers with the firm of Kimley Horn Engineering and Landscape Architecture of New York, PC. And then finally, rounding off the team, Benjamin Newby, architect of RSP Architects. The overall format for our presentation this evening will be, first, I will provide an overview of the applications for the zone text amendment and address that for the commission. And then second, we'll hear from Brandon Roebuck of Kimley Horn, who will provide you with an overview of the site plan relative to the proposed expansion. And Brandon will also address the lack of need for any additional parking due to the minimal increase in any traffic associated with the store expansion. I'd like to note for the commission that a traffic report and a parking study dated August 20, 2021 was prepared by John Canning, a traffic engineer with Kimley Horn, and that report has been submitted with the applications and will be addressed by Brandon Roebuck during his presentation. And then finally, we'll round off our presentation with Benjamin Newby, our architect, who will address the architectural features associated with the expansion. However, at the outset, with the permission of the Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to turn our presentation over to Mr. John Dietrich of Target Corporation, who would like to personally address the commission. Thank you.
Right ahead, Mr. Dietrich. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is John Dietrich, Senior Real Estate Portfolio Manager, Target Corporation, 1000 Nicollet Mall, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55403. Mr. Smith and our consultants here tonight will be able to add great detail and color to our proposed expansion. Target Corporation has been operating here in Bethel since 2002, and we look forward to having the opportunity to reinvest in our property, expand our property, and be able to bring 2021 type retail to this store. Retail has undergone tremendous changes over the last few years, especially during the pandemic and the omni-channel order online, pick up in store, pick up in the parking lot. Target has been working very hard nationwide to remodel our stores in order to handle how our guests want to buy product. Hence, we are looking to add 13,000 square feet to our existing building that we call fulfillment. That's back of house, back room. Offices will be rearranged. The entire floor plate inside the store is going to be touched because this is also a remodel. This store was last remodeled in 2011. So we are now on the edge of hitting a time frame when this store needs to be updated, new brand, everything new, check lanes, lights, flooring, all those things. That being said, we have a project tonight that I would respectfully ask your approval on the text amendments and for the special permits for the addition. And I will maybe just stop here. I'm available for any questions you may have before the design professionals get into this, and we can always come back and Target will be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay, thank you, John. Madam Chairwoman, thank you.
Thank you.
So addressing the applications for the commission, I'll address the zone text amendments. I did prepare a cover letter, which essentially provides a statement of use and summary of the three applications. And there was an exhibit A relative to the zone text amendments. I would like to just remind the commission, I think I have this obligation, that the legal standard for a zone text amendment is that the commission finds that the proposed text amendments are consistent, number one, consistent with your comprehensive plan, which, as the commission knows, are your zoning regulations and your zone map. Two, that they will not result in an adverse impact to the public health, safety, and welfare. And then three, pursuant to the statute dealing with zone changes and text amendments, that the text amendments be consistent with your town's 2020 POCD, your plan of conservation and development. And in your case, you also have a master plan from 2016. Just a quick review of the two text amendments, and I'm referring to my cover letter that's dated August 20th, 21. The first text amendment involves Article 4, Business Industry Zone, Section 4.4, entitled Dimensional Standard, subsection D, that has a formula for computing maximum commercial floor area limitations that are limited to, and this is limited to properties located in the Route 6 zone district. So it won't apply to any other retail unless it's located within the Route 6 zone district. And the amendment proposes to clarify that the existing requirement that the maximum commercial floor area be 7,750 square feet per gross acre be modified to reflect that the limitation be 7,750 square feet of public floor area per gross acre. The second requested text amendment involves Article 6, Basic Standards, Section 6.2, involving parking, loading, access, and storage, subsection D, where you provide for the opportunity to modify parking requirements in certain specific situations. And specifically, subparagraph 3 of that section addresses permanent site use reduction relative to parking. We're proposing a new provision that will, to be added, that will provide that the commission may reduce parking requirements for retail use not to exceed 20% of the required parking for such use, subject to certain criteria, in particular, that the proposal comply with your special permit standards as provided in your zoning regulations. So those are the two regulations, and I would respectfully submit to the commission that these regulations are consistent with your comprehensive plan. The property is zoned for large retail, and indeed it's been approved for large retail already. Relative to being consistent with your POCD and master plan, I would respectfully refer the commission back to the cover letter, and I'll just point out three objectives in your POCD. I won't address the items that we cite to from the master plan of 2016 that's incorporated into your January 2020 POCD. But specifically, your POCD at page 30 provides for three objectives that I think I would suggest are spot on to this proposal this evening. Number one, for the encouragement of, and these are objectives in your POCD, to encourage a larger format commercial and retail uses in the Route 6 corridor that are not found in downtown Bethel or other commercial districts. Number two, provision for, quote, appropriate zoning incentives that could include an increase in the maximum commercial floor area limits or a parking reduction, end of quote. And number three, quote, review of the zoning regulations in the Route 6 corridor in light of changing market conditions, end of quote. And I think that all three of those objectives are consistent with these text amendments, or excuse me, the text amendments are certainly consistent with these specified three objectives that you have in your POCD concerning retail uses and changing market conditions, as John has alluded to, in your Route 6 zone district. And I also respectfully submit that the text amendments will certainly not result in an adverse impact to the public health and safety, because any application is subject to a special permit review and approval relative, for example, to the parking reduction. So I would conclude and respectfully submit that the two proposed zone text amendments satisfy the legal standard for review and approval by the commission if within your discretion you determine to approve the text amendments. Now, the other two applications, as we've indicated, involve special permit applications. The first requesting a permanent reduction in parking for the target use of the subject property, and the second requesting a modification of the prior approved special permit to accommodate the proposed store expansion. And I'll remind the commission that we'll first hear from Mr. Brandon Roebuck, civil engineer with Kimley Horn, who will walk through the site plan issues, including traffic and parking. And then we'll hear from our architect, Benjamin Newby, who will address the architectural components of the proposal. So unless Madam Chairwoman or members of the commission, you have any questions for me, I'll turn the presentation over to Brandon.
We'll save all the questions for after everyone's spoken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Good evening, members of the commission. Like Chris said, my name is Brandon Roebuck. I'm a civil engineer with Kimley Horn Engineering and Landscape Architecture of New York. I'm out of our White Plains, New York office, and I will briefly share my screen now to go over the site improvements associated with these applications.
You got it.
Got it. Okay. So starting off from the site access at Stony Hill Road or Route 6, the existing access will be maintained and used up to the parking field. And then once you get into parking field, if one was to look at the main store's entrance, the proposed 13,000 square foot building addition will be located left of the entrance or east of the existing building. Like previously stated, the expansion will be used for stock and fulfillment needs. And further east of the expansion, which is shown in the darker hatch, and the existing building on the lighter hatch, there'll be a minor reconfiguration of the parking area next to the building to accommodate the addition, which will consist of landscape islands and trees and replacing the lights that were taken out during the reconfiguration. On the building expansion, there'll be 4 door locations which are not intended to be used by the public. The first door location is at the corner. The other ones are tucked along the eastern wall and in the back here. That leads me to the next part of the improvements is to relocate the existing 8 drive-up stalls, which are to the west or to the right of the main entrance of the Target store, over towards the door at the corner of the new addition, which will house the stock and fulfillment area. This was done to limit the pedestrian traffic by the main entrance and to allow for team members of Target to take the product directly out of the new stock area to the relocated stalls. In addition to the 8 relocated stalls, an additional 16 stalls for 24 total will be included in this row of drive-up stalls. This was due to the change in the shoppers' habits during COVID in the recent couple years. Moving towards the middle of the site, we are relocating 2 handicap stalls or ADA stalls that were removed for the building addition, right in the same location of the additional existing ADA stalls. The final piece of the site improvements will be a minor modification to the entrance into the parking field. At the top of the entrance, we will be removing 5 parking stalls and replacing them with an island, which will allow us to widen the entrance from 24 feet to 30 feet to allow for better movements of left-hand turns into the parking lot than what exists today. Those are the main site feature updates. And just to touch on landscaping, like I previously mentioned, we will be incorporating some new landscape islands on this side of the reconfiguration. But in general, landscaping will be limited to interior landscaping with these trees. And in addition of a lawned area next to the building expansion. In regards to site lighting, we will be proposing lighting that will match what is out there today and meet the requirements of the original 2001 store construction, which limited the lighting to 20 feet or less, 20-foot poles or less, and half of a foot candle of light at all the property lines. I think that touches most of the site improvements. In regards to stormwater management from the new addition, we are anticipating a slight decrease in stormwater runoff due to a slight increase in pervious areas. And we are going to maintain the existing drainage courses, which will be routed to a pond in the northwest corner of the site, which was inspected and observed to be in good working conditions, and which eventually outfalls via underground storm piping to Stony Hill Brook. To conclude my presentation, I will touch base a little bit about the alluded store remodel. As stated in our application, there's an existing cafe and snack bar use, which was previously closed during the pandemic, that will be remodeled into a Starbucks. The existing cafe snack bar use was approved to be 1,200 square feet. Target is proposing a 2,000-foot reconfiguration of the Starbucks bar. In regards to that, that leads me into traffic, which based on the report submitted on August 20th, it was found that an insignificant change to traffic volume and parking would be anticipated based on the addition and the reconfiguration of the Starbucks. That is mostly based on the existing cafe and snack bar use being included in the existing building, and that no new retail floor sales area is included in the addition. The Starbucks was looked upon as not as a destination as you would see in another Target store that might be connected to a strip mall or other buildings right in the same area, where that Starbucks is historically seen to draw more traffic. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ben Newby from RSP Architects to touch more on the internal remodel and architecture.
So yes, as mentioned, I'm Ben Newby. I'm a project designer with RSP Architects, and I've been handling the exterior design work and a bit of the interior with the remodel for the Bethel store. Thanks for stopping the share there. Share my screen here. Moving into the exterior strategy and improvements. We're proposing to try and tie this in a way that blends pretty naturally to the store that's there, while giving it a more contemporary feel, a little more welcoming feel. And so we've tried to maintain parapet heights, tried to kind of match the feel and size of the store with a few more architectural accents around the store, just to give it a little more life. we're proposing to keep a wainscot in block that matches the store is existing, and then use a stucco finish around the rest of the addition above, which has a little more contemporary feel to it, and a little finer finish, but will still work with that. As mentioned, we're proposing some new signage, new drive-up signage by the door, new signage on this end, which is designed to kind of catch you as you come up the hill there. And within this addition, the front portion towards the front of the store is stock serving that pickup and drive up services. And towards the back, it's office spaces where we're adding in some new windows, glazing, get some natural light into the space and make it feel a little more welcoming for the team members working there. And then I can move into the plan if that's helpful, to show that a little more clearly, where towards this end, we have our stock area. Behind that, in this zone, we have offices. And then, as previously mentioned, the expanded Starbucks and snack bar just to the left of the exit doors by the entry. That's kind of the broad strokes overview of what we're proposing architecturally for this project.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Madam Chairwoman, members of the commission, Chris Smith for the record. Just to touch upon one component with the text amendment, and that's the with the reduction of the parking. I know that town planner Cavagna had prepared a report, and there was a Beth had recommended a slight change relative to the text, and I would just point out that in the draft that we had submitted, we do propose as part of the criteria, as part of the review and standard for the commission, is not only that it not exceed, if any relief were to be provided, it not exceed more than 20% of the required parking, but also that it be demonstrated that the additional parking was not needed, in addition to the special permit criteria. And I do think that that is addressed in your town planner's report. And I would just like to point out in the Kimley Horn report that was done for you by Mr. Canning, who is a traffic engineer, and that report dated August 20, 2021, and it's at page 4. And Brandon, feel free to clarify anything that I say relative to this. With table 2, based on the ITE studies and the uses involved, Mr. Canning concluded that the project change in the parking generation, with the future parking for Friday would be 320 spaces, and with Saturday would be 386. And that there's actually 578 spaces that are provided on the site. So I think, as we all know, and I think that your town planner and has been on top, ahead of the curve with this. And I know, for example, in Hartford, there's a lot of feeling throughout the planning community, professional planning community, that regulations do provide for overparking that generates and results in unnecessary impervious surface and stormwater runoff that has potential impacts on environmental resources. Hartford actually has reduced any parking requirements in many of their zone districts. But again, we did provide you with some backup numbers in the professional study that was prepared by Kimley Horn concerning this particular issue. And I would like to point out to the commission that we did receive favorable review, and I know Mr. McCollum is on the is participating in this meeting this evening. We did receive favorable declaratory ruling from the Wetlands Commission last night concerning the fact that there are not regulated activities associated with this proposed expansion that would require a wetlands permit from the Wetlands Commission. We did file a formal full application. We did ask for either approval of that or what we felt was more appropriate, and that's what the commission did, that since there wasn't any regulated activity involved with this conduct, that they make such a finding. But I'll defer to Mr. McCollum relative to the specifics from that last night. And in conclusion, we respectfully submit that the zone text amendments and the special permit for the permanent reduction in parking and for the store expansion satisfy the applicable legal and regulatory standards for review and approval if the commission were to see fit to approve these applications. And based on the foregoing, we respectfully request that the commission approve the 3 applications. We're certainly available to respond to any questions that you may have or any citizens may have. And in closing, we'd just like to thank you for your time, and that Target looks forward to this opportunity to expand its store to better serve the citizens of the town of Bethel and in the surrounding area. Again, thank you, and we look forward to any questions that you have and responding to them. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman of the Commission.
Thank you very much. Beth, do you have any questions before we go to the public? Anything you'd like to? Oh, you're muted.
I saw that. I would, since we have a lot of public in attendance this evening, I would suggest that you go directly to the public.
Okay. One thing we'll ask the public when you come on, if you would give your name and your address. Okay, David, where do we start?
Sure. I'll give a brief tutorial, if you will, for those who have not attended a Zoom meeting before. To participate or to let us know you have comment that you wish to offer for the commission tonight, you will use the webinar toolbar and select the raise your hand icon. I see there's one participant in the audience who has already done that. That lets us know that you have comments to offer. It's a button that's on the bottom of the webinar. It should be towards the right-hand side. If you do not see it there, you can click on the participants icon and click next to your name. That will also let you raise your hand. I see 2 participants that have, 3 now, that have their hands raised. We'll start with the first of those, Madam Chairman, which is Shantia's iPhone.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Shantia White. I'm the resident at 9 Sky Edge Drive, which is the first property at the beginning of the hill when you're coming up Sky Edge. So my questions for tonight are, one is where the runoff, where you guys said that it would go down into the pond that is already situated and located at the corner of Sky Edge Drive. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if that's been assessed, but in my backyard, I get a lot of pooling of storm water runoff, and it gets as high as the halfway of the gate sometimes. And I don't know how frequent that water runs off and how long it takes, or if it's clogged, but my backyard does get the water just pools right in the corner where our property meet each other. So I don't know if that needs to be looked at to see if that's part of where that runoff needs to take place. And if you guys see that water pools where you have that space where you can walk, there's like a walkway where you have your greenery right on the other side of the parking lot on that right-hand side over there in the corner. That's where my property is. So that's my first question. If that is something that you guys could take a look at during this process where you're looking at the storm drainage and how it's running off. The next is I wanted to know about the trucks delivery frequency and the increase, because you guys are adding to your property, and you guys are gonna need more shipment, I'm assuming. So when is the shipment hours and frequency, and is there gonna be any trucks idling that will affect the air quality for the residents that live so close to your property where your dock is, where you do your deliveries?
Thank you. Next.
Okay, next I'm seeing a Jennifer.
Hi, this is Jennifer Bergen. I live at 4 Sky Edge Lane. So if you're going up Sky Edge Drive, that turns into Lane. My backyard backs up kind of to the back of the store. So we're kind of overlooking, the roof area. I just have two questions. I wanted to know, what is the estimate of the increased tax revenue to the town with this additional 13,000 square feet? Has that been discussed, and what will the town gain from this? The second question I have is, when are you anticipating the construction to start? What are you estimating the length of time? And I want to make sure that weekends are not going to be, there won't be construction and noise on the weekends. And then, as the prior speaker said, I also had a couple comments that I wanted to make. That we've been a residents on this street since the building was being built back in 2003, and we need somebody who we can contact off hours when Target is not following the rules. And we can contact the town. The town is only open, Monday to Friday. And there's a lot of things that are going on after hours. And, it's really frustrating for the last 18 years, with the noise. And, my neighbor Gail is on the call as well, but you guys are using a snowplow that is not appropriately sized for this type of parking lot. So it takes all night with this person snow plowing the driveway and the beeping and backing up. And so I would like a phone number, the contact name for these types of ongoing complaints, the noise that radiates up the hill when people are unloading things at night. And I'd like, and I'm sure other people who are surrounding the store would also like a contact number. So when this construction is happening, we have somebody to reach out to address something at the time of it's happening. That's all.
Ma'am, could you give us your last name again, please?
Sure. Bergen, Bergen, and my address is 4 Sky Edge Lane.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just unmuted myself because I can't find the flag. I'd like to go after Joan. So I do not have a hand raising thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay,
Hello?
go ahead, Gail.
I'd like to go after Joan Bradley. She's on here, and so
I'm Christie, I guess. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Joan, do I have permission to speak?
Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead, Joan.
Joan Garrick Bradley, 66 Ridgedale Road. I just like to give some history as to why Target is at its 123,000 square feet. Kitty Grant, I think, is the only person who is presently on Planning and Zoning, who was on the commission when all of the processing was going on, and Beth Cavagna, of course, was also involved as a town official. A great deal of time and effort went into keeping Target at its present size. Now, why? Well, we up in the Route 6 corridor, we're very concerned about having big box retail come into our neighborhood with all its associated traffic, noise, and problems with the neighborhood. We formed a neighborhood association, and we did extensive research into drainage, land usage, contamination issues on the site that were present because Yankee Gas owned the property. And we also looked into lighting and noise that would affect the surrounding residents. We were objecting to having a standalone property inserted into a U-shaped residential neighborhood. So the people in that U-shape are all affected. The association, through its members, made numerous presentations to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission did their due diligence And on March 28th, 2000, they denied the application. And there were 4 reasons for that, and those reasons are in your record. I could read them, but I don't want to take your time. Anyway, an appeal was filed on April 13th, 2000. Notice the timing, 2 weeks later. And then some rather negative proceedings followed. Planning and Zoning Commissioner Dennis Reardon was accused of conflict of interest. We neighborhood people were subpoenaed. I was secretary. All my records, all my documents were subpoenaed. I was on my way to the courthouse to give testimony when a settlement was reached. And the settlement is the stipulations for judgment. And item 4, and this is dated April 25th, 2001, a hard fought document. Item 4 reads, the total square footage of the building as shown on sheet pound 20.01 shall be reduced to a maximum of 123,000 square feet. Target is now proposing 13,000 square feet added together, and I'm not a math major. That makes it more than was originally asked for in the original proposal, 129,000 square feet. So we're into a bigger building, a substantially bigger building. My presentation is just to give you some background. This was a hard-fought decision by the Planning and Zoning Commissioners of the time and by the association members in the neighborhood. I'm not convinced that Target needs more square footage. Their inventory for 20 years has been stored elsewhere. It could still be stored elsewhere as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure that the impact on the neighborhood is beneficial. I'm not at all assured of that. So I am asking that the association of commissioners consider this carefully with the history and also with the neighborhood and deny this request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. All right, Gail.
Here's my hand.
All right, go ahead, Gail.
I'm Gail Dyer. I'm at 6 Sky Edge Lane. My house is directly behind the loading docks. And I'm right next to the storm water and the lighting Eversource. Joan just gave you some history. I'd like to say that basically the size of the building was based upon the fact that you have a U-shaped neighborhood around the properties. We had many concerns, and over the years, I'm seeing that those concerns are being realized more and more and more. So just to go through some of these, and Target new restriction that when you wanted them, it was definitely a U-shaped neighborhood. So originally no food court, no food sales. The store was again modified. So I went through a second construction based upon doing the food court and the inside frozen food counters, and they had to put stuff on the roof. Then we went through another construction, which had to do with putting solar panels on the roof. So that's 3. Then this will be the 4th if you go through with this. So that corresponds to the 4 Eversource constructions that have gone on over the years, making a total of 8 between Target and Eversource. So it has both have disrupted the neighborhood quite a bit. The lights, it was very vaguely mentioned, 0.5 candle, whatever it was. We had asked for the lights to be a certain wattage. It's in the plans, but I think that they have gotten a bit brighter. So I don't know if it's the LED bulbs or what, but the lighting, I believe, has gotten a bit brighter at the Target location. We've also asked that the lighting be lowered after hours. I forgot the exact timing of it. And what happened was whenever we called, this particular Target could not do that because the lighting is handled out of, I think, the master store in Massachusetts or something. And so all the stores were on the same timing. So that restriction was never adhered to. So I mentioned the different constructions. There was also a time when they were doing the compressors on the top for the frozen food and the food in the store, where they had Eversource come, and all night long, we had a tremendous amount of noise. We were never notified it was going to happen, and a lot of us were, or I worked at the time. Delivery, which is what you guys are basically talking to here with the inventory. Delivery, the hours have been a problem all along. We finally had Target put up a sign at the bottom of the ramp coming in, but I used to make a spreadsheet and send them to Steve, who was before Beth or handled it. I had spreadsheets of all the hours I was woken up for the coming at night. And that was settled because I guess they got it off campus inventory storage. And so what they did was put little vans, and they modified the vans so we wouldn't hear the noise. But the fact is, there was not supposed to be any deliveries after certain hours, the weekend hours and the week hours. And this went on and on and on. And I still think I do hear some of this, by the way. So there was sleepless nights. There was there's been more trash on the streets that we didn't have prior to Target coming in here. People leave trash and bags all along the streets. I'm a little concerned, again, I said about the deliveries. Pardon me?
Okay.
The noise levels and the overnight noise, if there's going to be an increase in that, because basically a lot of the stipulations have not been adhered to. Starbucks, will there or will there not ever be a window where people can go up and drive up and get Starbucks coffee? And are any changes being made to the store hours? I didn't see that in the documentation, and I'm a little concerned about that. But basically what I've noticed is that over the years, there's been the push for more and more and more things that we had been concerned about in the past and have taken place as time went on. Target knew the limitations when they moved in there. They knew about the surrounding residential area, and now they're trying to build larger. And I'm not sure with this pickup if we're going to be hearing more noises. It's beyond me. But anyway, I agree with Jennifer on saying we do need somebody. A lot of time, I just stopped calling because I didn't feel I was getting any responses. We talked about, somebody talked about the runoff. Well, coming down to the storm, that the water that goes around Target, there is a pipe. And I noticed that you said it was clean, but I've gone there and it hasn't been. And Target's supposed to be cleaning that screen, especially when a storm is coming out. And I don't know if that ever gets done or not. So basically, I would like a number to call as well. And so that if there is a problem, it gets handled immediately. And basically, that is it for me.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, who do we have next? Do we have someone else here?
There does not appear to be anyone else.
Mary Ann Kula.
Mary
Okay,
Ann.
there.
Hi, I couldn't get my hand up tonight, sorry.
I saw you.
Yes, thank you. My name's Mary Ann Kula. I live at 17 Good Hill Road in Bethel, on the other side of town from Target.
Oh, okay.
But I do shop there now and then. And I basically have two questions. Research has shown that our birds and bees and insects and butterflies all need native plants. And since we're going, if these changes go through, there's a proposal to put in more trees, replace trees. Could we use native species like oaks and maples rather than things that have been brought in from the Far East? So that's a relatively minor point compared to what other people have been talking about. And I also have one issue. I think a Starbucks would be really nice. And I just would hope you would provide adequate bathrooms. And that's all I have to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Oh, Gary Michael? You have your hand up, Gary? You're muted. I see your hand up. His hand is up, but he is muted. Oh, no.
I have
Gary?
no comments.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who has any questions at this time? No. Okay. Mr. Smith, yes, would you like to start answering questions?
Certainly, Madam Chairwoman, thank you, and members of the commission. Ms. White made reference, had a comment, and there were a couple of comments concerning the runoff, and I would just like to remind the commission, as Mr. Roebuck testified and indicated, and as indicated in the application material, there will actually be a slight reduction in stormwater runoff from the site. The stormwater drainage patterns on the site are all going to remain the same. Don't forget, the building is actually going to go over an existing parking area. But the runoff is not being changed other than to be slightly reduced. But we certainly can work with Shantia White, Miss White, and I believe Gail. And I apologize, Gail, I didn't get your last name. Dyer, there it is, right up on the screen. Relative to just looking into some of those issues that you brought up relative to that's the specific point with the runoff at the corner of your property. I mean, we can certainly work through with professional staff there, the commission staff, to look at those things for you. But again, from the big picture, stormwater is not going to change. If anything, it's just going to be slightly reduced. There will not be a drive-up window for Starbucks, for the record. The delivery patterns, I've heard some comments that there might be some issues, and you've worked with the professional staff of the commission to work on those over the years. The delivery hours are not going to change. They're going to remain just as they were approved with the special permit back in 2001. That was approved through a stipulated judgment, but it was what happened was a special permit was issued. And I think that's important for the commission and possibly the citizens to understand. Target did take an appeal, and I know there was this separate lawsuit. I was not involved with that, but they did take an appeal, and as a resolution, there was a stipulated judgment, which is very often how it works with land use appeals here in the state. This is all I do for a living, is land use law here in Connecticut, as your next attorney on the agenda does as well. And typically when you have a settlement, a special permit or a site plan or a wetlands permit or a subdivision approval is issued. That's what you're there for. And there's construction that occurs with that. As part of a judgment, the stipulation to settle the appeal, you just agree to the terms and conditions that are going to be imposed in that special permit. There was certainly nothing in the special permit that said that Target or any other subset, could be another retailer that takes over for Target, I suppose, but we don't anticipate that happening, could come in and ask for a modification of the special permit approval. There was no deed restriction. There's no permanent restriction that would prohibit anyone who owns this property from coming back and seeking to modify it, whether it involves the 13,000 square foot expansion to accommodate fulfillment needs with this changing economy or some other reason. Again, there's absolutely no prohibition in that settlement. A special permit was issued by the commission. The increase in tax revenue, I don't know if your professional staff generated that for you. Typically, that's not something that's relevant with a land use application. You're usually looking at your special permit criteria. The traffic, again, there's going to be a minimal increase. There was the traffic report and parking study that was submitted by Kimley Horn. And in that, professional traffic engineer did look at it. And again, the fulfillment, the 13,000 square feet is going to be utilized for fulfillment purposes. In other words, storing goods to be handed off and delivered to the guest, either through the store or through the drive-through stalls or drive-up stalls. But the report indicates, and this is at page 3 of the Kimley Horn study and report that was generated by Mr. Canning. And I'm just going to give you the date, August 20, 2021 at page 3, table 1. The anticipated increase in peak hour traffic on a Friday night is going to be an additional 3 trips. 3. It's going from 504 to 507. And for a Saturday peak hour, it's going to be an increase of 2 trips. So we thought that these would be issues that would be of concern and interest. And these are all good questions that we heard this evening from our neighbors. So we did have this study prepared to not only demonstrate the lack of any additional parking need, but also that there would be obviously minimal amount of traffic being generated relative to the 13,000 square foot expansion and the addition of the Starbucks component. I think in the statement of use that we provided to you, it does describe how there was a cafe that was operated, Target operated it. I believe Ms. Dwyer might have made reference to it. That had been approved by the town and has been in operation up until 2020 last year. With the pandemic, it was closed down. That's going to be revised and a Starbucks will be added. And there will be a substantial queuing area of like 700, I think, square feet. But that's all in your exhibit package. And again, it won't be a destination Starbucks. It's going to be basically serving the guests. And as Mr. Roebuck indicated, the store is not located in a full shopping center where you have pedestrians going from one store to the other, where they might stop and actually go to the Starbucks just to go to the Starbucks. You have a standalone store essentially on this parcel, and the Starbucks will be inside. There won't be a drive-through. And as to Ms. Kula's comments with the bathrooms, you do have a report from your health department in the town. And as it indicates that there will be various permitting that will be required for the improvements being made, the floor area, including revitalizing or revamping the Target Cafe and the Starbucks. So I'm sure that all health codes will be met, Ms. Kula, and there will be sufficient bathrooms hopefully there. The native species, I can defer to Mr. Roebuck as to, I don't know the specific types of trees that are going to be included in the new landscaped area. I would like to point out to the commission and Mr. Roebuck from Kimley Horn in his presentation, I did provide you with the site plan demonstrating the substantial buffer that had been installed and planted as part of the resolution of the appeal back over 20 years ago. That does provide a buffer for the adjacent residential properties. The lighting, again, is going to stay the same. I'm not sure if the candles, if the lighting bulbs have changed, but certainly we will. Target doesn't the whole idea was to keep within the original special permit as much as possible. Delivery hours, not going to change. Lighting, not going to increase it, have to stay within it. So Target has made every effort to, again, stay within that and demonstrating to the commission and to the neighbors that it's not going to involve an increase in traffic. It's really minimal relative to what's being done here. And again, there's no new floor sales area that's being proposed with this, as there is essentially with the 123,000 square feet that you have. So I'm hoping that addresses most of the responses. If any members of our team, it's a disadvantage when you're doing this. You can't huddle in the hallway and take a 5-minute recess, Madam Chairwoman, members of the commission, although there are advantages to it because everybody can see what's going on and participate from their home. But I'm just checking my emails here to see if there's any comments from any of the other team members, but I'll certainly defer to anybody else who might have some comments or any questions that you or the commission has. Thank you.
Kitty, may I interject for a moment?
Oh, please
It's
go
Beth
ahead.
Wagner, the planner.
Actually, nobody answered my question.
Can I interject for a moment, Madam Chairman?
Go ahead. We will get back to you, Ms. Bergen.
In regards to several of the comments made by the neighbors, one thing that has occurred since the Target approval was done and built was that the town, number one, the town of Bethel does have a noise ordinance, and I don't have the actual adoption date, but it deals with items such as truck idling and things of that nature, noise. There is a noise requirement in the ordinance also. So now when things like this happen in the middle of the night, which I'm familiar with some of the complaints from some of the neighbors, granted Target has made strides to ensure that this doesn't happen, but one of the options they do have is to call the Bethel Police Department. They're responsible for enforcing those items. I do think that something that should be taken under consideration by Target is to have a contact by email at least for neighbors to be in touch with when certain things go on, such as paving, things of that nature that have occurred over the last 20 years. I think it would be a great part of their guest service program to have something like that available. As far as tax revenue, as a planner, I don't have anything to do with formulating what tax revenue it will generate for the town. And I believe that's all I had to mention at this point. And I would also ask that Shantia contact the land use department, and we will make arrangements with staff to go out and see your problem and try to make a determination of if there is something that involves Target or their stormwater runoff. We will certainly get in touch with them. That's all I have for the moment.
And I believe Ms. Cavagna just answered your question, Ms. Bergen, about the contact. Was that what you were discussing?
That was one question. My second question was regarding the construction. If this gets approved, what is your estimate time when it's going to start? How long does it take? And I want a affirmation that this is not going to be no construction after a certain time during the week and no construction during weekends.
May I respond to that on behalf of the town? If you note in my report, I do mention those items in regards to construction, time of construction and things of that nature. And that would be addressed during the discussion and approval process or denial process of the Planning and Zoning Commission. In the past, usually construction is monitored two ways. One is by hours of operation. And secondly, no construction should ever occur on the weekends or holidays unless there is special circumstances. And those special circumstances are determined by the department. For example, a wall falls down and it has to be rebuilt immediately because the rest of the walls are going to fall. Obviously, something like that would occur on the weekend. Does that help you?
Yeah, yes, that's very helpful. Thank you. And it just jogged my memory to ask you one other thing. When the original store was built, I believe it was 11 homeowners, which I'm one of, received a benefit of the sewer line connection to our homes. We were all on septic at the time, and we were all converting over, and Target had agreed to compensate for that expense for us. And I wanted to know, is there any sort of benefit for us 11 homes again for this new, if it goes through, for the inconvenience and such?
It is my understanding that when this was originally approved through a special permit, you received an allotment to connect to the sewer lines, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I also, if I am under the right understanding, that you did not receive an assessment?
No,
that is correct.
Right, and that assessment on the most part was very substantial.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but outside of that, and during the original approval process, there was the fencing that was involved, screening and things of that nature. I do not believe that, first of all, we are not in court. We are not dealing with a court case or a court settlement. So at this point, I do not see Target doing anything more than requesting that an addition be allowed to be put on their building.
Okay, understood.
Good, Mr. Smith.
For the record, again, Chris Smith, I think that that last point that Beth made is correct and accurate, that your town planner, Cavagna. And what I'd like to do is, I don't think we have any issue with working with professional staff to come up with a contact person, but I know Mr. Dietrich from Target Corporation, John Dietrich would like to provide some comment to some of the questions that have been raised by the neighbors and the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, residents, citizens, for coming out here tonight. Target, let me just say, Target takes great pride in being a good neighbor. We have worked hard at all of our stores to have a relationship with neighbors. And if you have had issues in the past of calling and not having a point of contact, we will make a point of contact for you. We can have that set up. We can have a part of your neighborhood notice, or however. I will make sure that happens. So we'll make sure that happens, so that at least you have a 24-hour email or phone call. We'll get that done. 2, Target and retail is not a static industry. I would like to say something gets built and it stays and it doesn't change. If you don't change, if you don't grow, if you don't modify, if you don't innovate, stores close. And I think everyone can look around the community and see stores that have not made it, that there are blank storefronts, that there are not synergy in a commercial center. So Target has taken a lot of time to reinvest in our stores, reinvest in our products, reinvest in how we do things so that we can be more efficient. In terms of adding backroom and fulfillment for our store here, that's the nature of how retail needs to be addressed today. And we have every intent to live to the letter of the law of the stipulations that were in 2001, and provide a guest service experience, hence the Starbucks in the store, hence the snack bar, hence the expanded and enhanced guest services. So we do want to be a valued member of the community, and we will work hard to do that. There was one comment about construction. We have not defined all of the construction elements yet, but ideally, if we can move forward and we have approvals from the commission, we would like to start the construction in late 2022 to build the exterior box and do the site work so that it would be up and complete. We would then leave for the period during Q4, as we call it, the Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's season. And then we would come back in 2023 with that shell already in place so that we could remodel the store, because we're moving offices, we're moving shelves, we're moving a lot of things around. So ideally, if we can move this forward, address all of the concerns, we would do a partial construction in 22, and then the entire store remodel, exterior signage in 2023.
And John, if you can just clarify for the Chris Smith, for the record, the distinction between the exterior and interior work, because I think it's important relative to the hours. There are delivery hours, and the town planner Cavagna made reference to how you typically do impose hours relative to construction, and that's certainly typical throughout the state. And I think Target would certainly be amenable to that, and something consistent with the delivery hours that are already provided with the existing special permit would be something that I think Target would be looking for. But we would, on behalf of Target, and one of the things John pointed out to me, because again, your town planner Cavagna made reference to addressing these issues in her report. last sentence in the last page makes reference to this, that there would be quite a bit of interior work being done to refit the store that's not going to involve outside or exterior activity. And much of that would be occurring probably during the off hours when there aren't people, guests shopping. So hopefully if you have hours of operation, that there's some sort of distinction made between obviously exterior work that may have an impact on the adjacent property owners versus the interior remodeling work that is not likely to have any impact because it's all going to be inside the store itself. So we would just like to point that out to the commission while you're deliberating on any potential hours relative to construction, that it just be broken into those two components if possible. Is that fair to say, John?
That is fair to say, and with a noise ordinance in place, is Target's intent to live by that noise ordinance. If we need to do something outside that, we would file this, for a special permit. So if there's a noise ordinance for exterior work, we will work within that boundary and within those guidelines. But one thing, as Chris mentioned, this store is going to stay open during the remodel. It's tough. It's, we have to do safety checks throughout. Contractors have to move things around. So we will be inside the store after hours, working when there are not guests in the store, and that will be going on as part of the remodel.
Thank you.
Kitty, may I add one more comment that came to mind in regards to the deliveries?
Please do.
I will say that over the years working with, and I cannot remember his full name, but his name was Fred with Target in the beginning of the store's operations. We did have a lot of trouble with deliveries after hours, truck idling and things like that. Yes, the neighbors were very vocal and signs were installed giving them specific instructions, but I do recall in the summertime especially, Target did go and put in more security cameras along the side of the building so they could become very aware of who is not abiding by the rules of the stipulated judgment or the special permit, whichever was issued at the time. That's all.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Smith?
No, Madam Chairwoman, thank you.
Okay. Now, anyone who has a further question, not one you've already asked, but anything new that you would like to ask, this will be the time to raise your hand. No? Okay, so I'm going to go to commission members.
No, there were two, Kitty,
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry, I
sorry.
missed this. Oh,
The first was Shantia White and then Gail Dyer.
Thank you very much. Shantia?
Hi, I would like to say thank you for the information about contacting the land use program about the runoff. So I will get on that ASAP. With this last storm that we had, I mean, there was so much water back there that I do think that it needs to be assessed. And then I want to find out, when was the noise ordinance done? Because there has been times that I have called the Bethel Police Department about the snow removal or the gentlemen's coming in to like blow the leaves. They would come one time, they came 4 a.m, and the police department told me that it's private property, so there was nothing that they can do. So I would like to know, because I've called the police and they don't come out.
I myself don't know. Go ahead. Do you know, Beth?
Shantia, what I would suggest is that you speak to my department directly and have a conversation in regards to that. And after reviewing the ordinance, I'm sorry I don't have it right in front of me. I don't know the date or the time of the year or some of the conditions that may be exempt from that. Leaf blowing may be one, snow plowing may be another. Snow plowing, especially because it is a safety issue. But again, if I'm sure that we can have a good discussion, I'll speak to the police department on your behalf.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Hi, this
Gail?
is Jennifer Bergen, just commenting again. my issue, when I commented about the snow plowing at all hours of the night, we understand the parking lot needs to be plowed. The plow that Target is using is meant for not a huge parking lot like that. And that's why it takes so much time, and the noise is all night. If they just used a plow or hired somebody locally that had a full-size, type of plow where it could be done quicker, that's my issue. And when they're backing up, there's no need for to be hearing the beeping of a plow backing up in the middle of the night when nobody's in that parking lot. And that's what keeps us up.
Thank you, Ms. Bergen.
Okay, thank you.
Gail, you had something further? Name and address, please.
Off mute. I just wanted to respond to something that Beth had.
Name and address, Gail. I'm sorry, you have to do it
Oh,
again.
it's Gail Dyer, 6 Sky Edge Lane.
Thank you.
I just want to respond to something that Beth had said about Fred. I know the signs had been put up, and I didn't know about the security cameras or whatever, but it was after the signs were put up, and I had spoken to Fred several times, that the noise of the trucks and those vans continued. So they didn't end with that. So I just thought I would let you know. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Dietrich also said he was going to get a name, a contact person for all of you, and hopefully that'll be of a big help to you.
Yeah, and the thing is, if something's happening at 2 a.m, you need somebody to take care of it immediately. That's been our big problem. There's nobody there. There's nobody to help. I have called the police once, and there really was no help. So.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they'll be able to get you somebody at 2 a.m, but at least someone perhaps a little later in the morning that will be able to resolve it for the next time. Okay, so commission members, John Lennon.
I have no questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Kenny Parsons.
The 20% reduction in parking, is that approximately 100 spaces you're going to be removing?
I'll let, for the record, Chris Smith, I'll let Brandon Roebuck address exactly the number of spaces that are being removed, which again is, when this was constructed, Commissioner Parsons, it did comply with the zoning regulations, and but we are looking for a reduction. I think don't hold me to it. Brandon can address, it was either 13, 15% total. In the text amendment, we just picked the 20%, but I'll let Brandon address that specifically for you. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Brandon Roebuck. Yeah, Chris, you're right. It is less than that. It's we're going to be losing 35 spaces in net with this modification.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, Penny Kessler. Penny Kessler. Is Penny Kessler anymore? Okay, Linda Curtis.
Well, I'm certainly sympathetic to, the issues that the neighbors have to face, being around a commercial retail area. However, I'm not really convinced that the modifications that Target is going to be doing are going to exasperate any of those issues. And certainly I understand Target is trying to adapt to the new consumer requirements. And I believe that having this fulfillment storage area right there close to where those pickup areas are going to be makes total sense. I think it's going to be very efficient, and whatever traffic is going in there, it's going to be in and out very quickly. So it seems like a very good plan to me.
Thank you, Linda. Rob Wallace.
I have no questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Rob Stoll. Rob Stoll. Don't know what's on.
Regarding the first text amendment, where we're adding the public floor area as opposed to just plain gross floor area, I'm just a little, I'd like to know maybe a little more reason why we're adding public, number one. And number two, the law of unintended consequences for possible future buildings of this type being maybe a little more unconstrained with their size. Could perhaps the applicants address that a little bit?
Certainly, for the record, Chris Smith, Commissioner Stowell, I'm not sure about the unintended consequences, but the idea here is that, as I think has been demonstrated, it's the public area, the public sales area that actually generates traffic, that generates the need for parking. And it's not storage area that's associated with the retail use. And that's what we're talking about here is a retail use. So I think it's really just to clarify that you can have additional storage that's not going to be generating, as it's been demonstrated with the traffic study, really any increase in traffic whatsoever. 2 and 3 trips over 3 or 500 or whatever the 400, the numbers, they're right in the report. So the idea was just to tie the requirement with the maximum floor area to public space floor area, because that should drive the other requirements in your special permit regulations and in your zone district regulations for minimum parking requirements and addressing traffic issues, for example. I'm not quite sure how the unintended, how that would work. But again, that's the purpose and was the idea with this proposal. And I can certainly defer to Town Planner Cavagna if Beth has any comments on it.
Anything further, Rob?
No, thank you, Mr. Smith. I actually agree very well with what Linda just said in terms of her comments. So,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's where I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple I was going over the Kimberly Horn report. I don't see where it mentioned, Thomas Villa, our Public Utilities Director, had a memo. And in number 3, he talks about design calculations to be needed to determine the size of the grease interceptor. And I don't see where that is in the Kimberly Horn report. Was that answered anywhere?
I don't, Brandon, can you respond to that?
Yeah, sure. Brandon Rebuck for the record. Those comments came after we submitted our reports, and we agree with his comments that the final grease interceptor that will be specified for the project and mainly to deal with the Starbucks will be sized properly for the Starbucks in restaurant cafe.
And Madam Chairwoman, I suggest that your health department and probably your utilities would have input relative to that before any zoning permit, or I'll say building permit for that zoning would sign off on. So we certainly that would agree to have that as a condition, that information would be provided, be satisfactory to your professional staff.
Excellent. There's only one other question in the Wright-Pierce report that I would like to ask. It's their very last item. Will there be a need for any soil stockpiles on the site during this construction? I realize that could be asked later, but it was just something that I would like answered if it's at all possible.
Good question. Brandon, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Brandon,
Mr. Country land use lawyer, not a civil engineer.
Thank you.
There are no anticipated large stockpile areas. However, we read Wright-Pierce's comments and agree that when they are going to landscape the little islands in the parking lot, there might be a need to bring in some topsoil and have it placed in the area of the new proposed lawn. We are adding to our plans to address that, controls around that little stockpile and specifying it to be controlled if it is needed for the temporary landscaping construction.
Great, thank you. Just one other question I had, the Starbucks. Now, originally, I think it said that your cafeteria or your snack bar area was 1,250 square feet. Now I understand it's going to be 2,000 square feet. And it also said, I thought interesting, that all of the seating for the 25 people will be taken out. So is this strictly you walk in take it and leave? Or is there any place for people to sit and have their, whatever they're buying? Mr. Dietrich.
If I may, Madam Chair. John Dietrich, Target Corporation. The initial cafe snack bar, vintage 2005, yes, it had 25 seats in it, and it had the popcorn, and it had the roller dogs, and it had, you know, the juice machines. That is being redone into a modified snack bar per se, not a cafe, and the Starbucks will be a part of that. So all total, those two equal approximately 2,000 square feet, of which about 700 of that is circulation area for guests to get their Starbucks before they start to shop or on their way out. In terms of seating, seating is basically going away. There are going to be bars to stand at. There may be a few chairs or tables, but essentially our experience is people are there for a convenient element. They're not there to sit for hours. They want their snack, they want a quick bite, they want their coffee, and then they keep moving. So that's how we have taken that space, and we feel it's much higher utilized.
Great. One of the observation I made with having this larger inventory area, to me, it just made sense, perhaps I'm wrong, that if you have a larger inventory area, you wouldn't have to have quite as many deliveries as you had previously. Would that be the case possibly?
If I may, again, John Dietrich, Target Corporation. Target has an offsite facility now that basically adds another step to the process. There's smaller trucks that go in there, smaller trucks that come out. The efficiencies that we're able to do by taking product from the warehouse within the semis that are already coming to the site will be a more efficient. Will it be a reduction of semis? It's going to be close, but we should not see perceived traffic because we will have trucks that are fully loaded, fully stocked for this store to be able to come in and do the fulfillment. One of the growth elements of Target is having products that guests want. And we talk about basket size, and basket size is how much a product a guest will purchase. That's how we are able to maintain and sustain our edge over many of our competitors, because we're always adding private labels, or we're doing, you know, promotions, or we're doing so that the guests are really able to buy and be sustained. Ordering online, many guests now will order online, walk up to the guest services when they come in on their way home, way out, their package is right there. You want to order online and do drive up, we have the stalls right there. You don't even have to get out of your car. You can just say thank you, put it in your trunk, and you're gone. So we have to have that type of space for that type of sorting to have the product go in a basket out the guest services or out through the drive up. So it takes more space to coordinate all of those elements.
Thank you for explaining that. Now I understand much better. Thank you. Okay, Beth, do you have any further questions?
Not at this time, no. Thank you.
Okay, well, I am going to suggest, as three of our members are not here, that we leave this open till the next meeting so we can have further discussion with them.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, are we waiting for any other information from town agencies?
I'm
Or
not
any unanswered questions?
I don't think so, Beth, or are we?
No, we are not waiting for any other information from other agencies.
You know, I think I understand with Pat, and this is being recorded,
And
but
Bob.
I mean, to be timely, I think every commissioner has the opportunity, besides Pat, to be here. And if any, if all answers or questions are answered, I see no reason to keep the public hearing open.
Okay, well then, shall we take a vote? Commission members, you think would that be all right, Beth? To have a consensus?
It's your decision. You have a quorum and yes, it's your decision.
Okay, so, commission members, shall we vote to close the meeting for the public hearing for tonight? Public hearing, period.
Yeah, we can close it.
Do
Rob?
we need a motion? I so move, we close this. public
No, we don't need a motion. I'm just asking, you just say yes or no, please. Rob? You think we should close the hearing tonight?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, and I guess
We
Penny.
got two Robs here, so.
Yeah, I guess Penny is not here any longer?
No, she isn't. I don't see her on the board.
Well, I think it is a consensus.
So you have a consensus of the existing
So
commission
right,
members
so I
now.
think we should be closing the public hearing tonight.
So you're declaring the public hearing closed?
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you very much.
And our best to the chair. Prayers to the chair. Thank you.
Yes, we will. Thank you very much. Okay, shall we move on? Okay, yeah, okay, we can. Let's see, I put my glasses on to read it. Okay, the next item on our agenda is Upstream Properties, 2 LLC, text amendment, SC 5.2 Stony Hill Plan Designed Overlay District, 4850 Stony Hill Road. And speaking for the applicant would be
Attorney Olson, I bet.
Good
Peter
evening.
Olson, perhaps?
We do have a staff report. Do you want to acknowledge receipt of that staff report before I start talking?
I'm sorry. I messed up. I don't have that.
Okay, somebody has it.
Somebody I have to go through all my paperwork. I'm terribly sorry.
Beth, you're muted if you're talking.
I am talking.
Yes, please.
You have a staff report? Did I mute myself? I apologize.
So you're not muted. I don't, Beth. I'm sorry.
Okay, so what you want to do is acknowledge for the record, staff report dated September 27, 2021 for the
Oh,
proposed text amendment.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. It's staring me in the face. Yes, thank you. Yes. Planning and Zoning Commission, David McCollum, Land Use Coordinator, proposed text amendment, Stony Hill Plan Design Overlay District, September 27th. Yes. Yes. For the
Great,
record.
thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
And did I hear correctly that you read the legal notice for this public hearing at the
Yes, we
beginning of
did.
the other public hearing? Okay, I just wanted to be
Yes.
sure on that. Good evening. My name is Peter Olson. I'm an attorney with an office here in Bethel at 275 Greenwood Avenue. My firm name is Land Use and Conservation Counsel. I'm here tonight on behalf of Upstream Properties 2 LLC, which is the owners of the property located at 48 Stony Hill Road, the former Stony Hill Inn site, and the vacant parcel of land that is in front of Copper Square. Upstream Properties is represented here tonight by Bob Gleason, Gary Michael, at least one Gary Michael, perhaps two, and Rich Mancuso. They're the owners of multiple properties throughout Bethel, including Dolan Plaza, the Grand 2. The proceedings tonight, we hope that you view them as a continuation of a process that we started several months ago, where we've engaged with staff and with you, the commission, to work together to try to find an appropriate plan to conclude the redevelopment of the Stony Hill Inn site. We've gone through several iterations of that plan, both meeting with you, after we met with you, and since then. And so I want to start tonight by showing you where we are with our planning before we get to the dry manner of a text amendment. Do I have permission to share my screen?
You do, Attorney Olson.
Okay, let me do that. What you see in front of you is an overhead view of our plan superimposed on the vacant property. And you can see the edge of the Copper Square development in the top left, which I will draw on my plan to show you. In this area, you can see the Copper Square buildings. And then you see the pond that exists on the Copper Square property. The building layout is functionally somewhat similar to the plan approved for this parcel as part of the Copper Square development, in that you have essentially L-shaped configuration of the buildings along the rear property lines. And then we've added an additional building along the front, as well as moved the commercial building that was in the front left corner a little closer to the road. In addition, we've added a park feature down in the right-hand corner, which I'll circle, that we think is going to be a very attractive addition to the Stony Hill neighborhood. We've done a rendering from a helicopter or a drone view from across the street that shows essentially our planned architecture with the commercial buildings right up against the street frontage on the sidewalk. I always like it when architects include Lamborghinis in their renderings. Definitely a good approach for our marketing is to assume that we'll have multiple owners with Lamborghinis. And then finally, the image I'll leave up while I keep talking is the front view of the commercial buildings, which we think is very reflective of the conversation we had with the commission way back about what you wanted the look and feel of this property to be as you proceeded along Stony Hill Road. The commercial has been brought right up to the road frontage, and we think it feels like a commercial district. And hopefully you agree with that. So I'm going to leave that up while I talk for a little while. The question before you tonight is how we get from where we are and where we were to being able to put a shovel in the ground. We want that to be an efficient process for us, obviously. We want it to be a process where you have input into it, and it's done in an open manner. So we put a lot of thought into how to accomplish that process from point A to point B. In your capacity as a zoning commission, you review many kinds of different applications. And the amount of discretion you have on each type of application varies. So for example, if you're reviewing a site plan, you have the least amount of discretion. If the site plan meets the regulations, you have to approve it. We call that an administrative review. The next level up would be something like a special permit. You have a medium amount of discretion. The regs can provide you with discretionary items that you can apply to your review of that application, kind of a halfway process. Theoretically, you're supposed to comply with your regulations in doing a special permit, but those regulations can provide you with some discretion. And then finally, the level that has the most amount of discretion are zone text and map amendments. You're acting as the legislature, you're deciding what the law in Bethel should be, and your decision can really only be overturned if there's really bad things going on, like fraud or bias or something like that. You can decide an application for text or map amendment simply because you don't like it. We don't want to do this in Bethel, so it's denied. And the court's not going to overturn that. What we see right now in the Route 6 zoning district is an approach where every individual development came to you and said, we need this one or two small tweaks to the regulations to make our development work for us. And I confess, I am a principal culprit in using this approach. I blame myself for a lot of the current condition of the RT6 zone because I worked for a number of clients over the years, and I've said, here's what we need to do to make this work. And I brought it to you and you agreed and we made it work. And I think that's worked for the Route 6 development, Route 6 corridor development. Sometimes this is narrow exceptions to what's there to make it apply to only one property. And we can see that in what happened with the approval of the development for this property in 2013, where we made it work by putting a dividing line of 250 feet and said your ground floor residential has to be behind that. You have to have commercial in the front. There has to be a certain number of square footage of commercial. And then the very next project that used that needed to change it because that amount of commercial wasn't working for them. They wanted to do a medical office building, and they came in and asked you to reduce that. So while the changes may work perfectly for the individual project in front of you, they may not work so well for the next project. And so they asked for their own change and so on. And the result can be a rather jumbled mess. And that is not great as far as zoning regulations go. So the approach that we've taken in the proposal that's before you tonight is to simplify this approach in a manner that still takes advantage of your discretionary powers to act on zone text amendments and map amendments, leaving you with really the ultimate control about whether things can happen, but also lets developers operate under a streamlined approach to point out to you, these are the little things that we need to change to make our development work, and you should approve that altogether. So enter what I've called the Stony Hill Plan Design Overlay District, SHPDOD. Maybe there's another D in there. And the way this works is that the enabling text for the zoning district is an overlay district, and it is a floating zone. It sits in the regulation, so it will exist for everybody, and is an option for development of larger parcels in the Route 6 zoning district. I drafted this to require 5 acres for a lot in order for somebody to make a request to use this process. But as pointed out in the staff memorandum, it may be fine to have a lower number to expand this to more eligible lots. And we don't care if you make that change, and that's perfectly fine. It doesn't affect us as long as it's at least 6 acres, which is what we have. And you may want to, if this process works, make that change in the future. The zone requires 140 feet of frontage. That matches the underlying zoning requirement. So we're not changing that. We're just essentially limiting this to lots that are conforming to that requirement. And sewer and water are required. This is probably true for every lot in the RT6 district, but just in case we put that in there. So how does it work when somebody wants to come in and develop a piece of property? An application is filed to apply the zone to a particular piece of property. That's a map amendment. And as I noted, you have ultimate discretion on map amendments. And they bring with that a conceptual plan with quite a bit of detail required, and that's all laid out in the district itself. And so you have in front of you that request. And if you think that's appropriate, you act to apply the zone to the property and approve the conceptual site plan. The requirement of the developer in that process is to itemize for you the ways in which the map and site plan that they propose don't comply with the RT6 district itself. So they can say, well, the RT6 district needs a, for example, 25-foot side yard setback, and we think we need 20 feet to make this work. And those are itemized in a statement that gets adopted by the commission as part of that adoption of the map amendment applying to the property. So when that's done, the zone acts as an overlay on the property. And an overlay is just an additional layer of regulations that applies in addition to the base requirements of the zone. You can think of it like a sandwich, and we're just going to add a slice of cheese in there that authorizes additional uses in addition to the underlying zone. In this particular case, this overlay zone does have some changes from the underlying zone that we have proposed, and they are laid out in the text of the regulation that I sent to you. I'm going to try to share it and put it up on the screen. I better shrink it a bit. So in a property that has this new zoning overlay district applied to it, there's an alteration of the uses that are available in the zone. First, any of the commercial uses that are permitted in the RT6 district are permitted in the overlay zone. And I'll tell you in a second why I included that section. Second, we've altered the multifamily residential requirements. Whether it's apartments, townhouses, or condominiums, whether they're located above commercial or on the ground floor, such as townhomes or the duplexes that are part of Copper Square, they're all allowed in this zone, up to a base residential density of 20 units an acre, which is up from 10 in the existing Route 6 zone. But it is less than the 30 units per acre that are authorized as part of the Transit-Oriented Development District. So it sits right in the middle. We do have transit in this zone, but it is bus rather than train. And the frequency is not as high as we would like, I think. In addition to the base residential density, we've built in a small density bonus of up to 5 additional units per acre. But the affordability requirement of that additional density must be 50% of the units provided rather than 20%, which is what we've proposed later on. And I'll mention right now, the affordability requirement of the zone is 20% at 80% of the area median income. And I'll talk about that in a second as to why those are important. And then I think the real workhorse of this section is, instead of providing for a specific number of square feet of commercial space that's required, as the base underlying zone does, all we say is you have to provide commercial and residential, and it has to be in a location, configuration, and proportion that the commission deems appropriate given the circumstances of the land. And the reason we built that in as a very general requirement is we think that commercial demand is something that is very fluid. And at the moment, there's not much commercial demand. As you just heard from Target, the commercial requirements of their operation changes over time. And we agree with that. And in 5 years, it may be that there's demand for medical office or regular office or retail, or there's more demand for restaurant space. And you, the commission, rather than changing your regulations every couple of years to reflect this demand change, you can review any application that's before you based on the circumstances of the application itself and what's going on at that given time. That's the flexibility we're trying to build in to the regulation. I'd like right now to sort of interrupt my presentation and have Bob Gleason chime in to talk to you about why this is a crucially important point. And we've made this point to you before in our informal discussions, but because we're in a public hearing tonight, I'd like to put that in the record here. So Bob, if you're listening, if you can turn on your microphone and chime in.
I am here. I'm Bob Gleason, one of the owners of Upstream Properties LLC. Also the owner, one of the owners of the Dolan Plaza, the Grand 1, the Grand 2, and a big fan of Bethel. We met with you 3 months ago and we told you we were thinking about buying this piece of property. It sat there for a long period of time. Many people looked at it and nothing happened. And in that discussion, you know, one of the feelings was that the commercial requirement that was adopted before the 2008 crash, before COVID, everything before the world changed does no longer applies to this property. And we talked about the Big Y Plaza across the street that's had a steady 4 or 5 vacancies since the day it's been built. And you can go down Stony Hill Road where there's medical buildings that have been built that are not half filled. And, you know, as an owner of the Dolan Plaza that took 18 commercial tenants through a pandemic, I can tell you that it's not great out there as a retailer or as an office person or anything at this point. Amazon changed the world for Target. Amazon changed the world for retail. And now COVID has changed the world for office, in my opinion. And the results bear it out. If any of you have walked through the Danbury Fair Mall lately, it's frankly depressing. You know, so what we want to do here is what Bethel needs, what our present tenants need, what Target needs, what Big Y needs, what Starbucks needs, what all they all need are people to go there and shop. And Route 6 is right off the highway. It doesn't impact many residential neighbors. It's the perfect place for it. The name for our development is going to be the Grand at Stony Hill Village. And we're a big proponent of that. And we've created that village concept. When we talked last time, the goal that I took away and that our team took away was that when you drive down Stony Hill Road, you want to see commercial and a park, and that's it. So we took one 5,000 square foot commercial building and made two. So now we have 10,000 square feet of commercial space all along Stony Hill Road, and then the pocket park. And that's what you see as you drive down Stony Hill. Then you go into the village and there's the pool and all that stuff. So my thoughts are simple, that we want to have a project that works. We want to have a project that we get going with soon. I think we've proven our love of Bethel and how we only build good things. But what we also do is we build things that work. As just one last sidebar, when we've talked to banks for financing this project. Every single bank we've talked to said, "Why are you putting commercial component in this?" We won't even count potential rent in your pro forma because we don't think you'll rent them. That's how jaded the financial banking sector is out there. So that's where it is. I can't stress how excited we are for this project. We're really proud of the architecture so far, and we're really looking forward to get going. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Bob. So as I noted, this overlay zone has these use changes in the regulations from the underlying zone, and those will sit there and will only apply to any property that you as a commission decide is appropriate for them to apply to. That's the map amendment component of what this is. There is one requirement that I built in, which is that the structures have to meet the height requirements of the underlying zone. We didn't think it was appropriate for people to come in and ask to change that requirement. Beyond those basic changes to the zone, as I noted, if there are dimensional standards that a property owner or developer wants to apply to their development, that are different than what's in the RT6 zone, those have to be listed specifically. And the commission would have to adopt those as modifications and list them out. So we're very clear what the criteria of the new zoning district are. We also included flexibility as to parking. And I think Target just discussed with you what the flexibility they need with parking. The legislature has made changes that they would like you to adopt regarding parking requirements. You've got special permit criteria in your regulations that allow reduction of parking. We just sort of threw all that out and said, let's let the parking be determined as to what's appropriate for the development as the commission determines. And so the developer is going to have to make a pitch to you that the number of parking spaces provided are adequate for the uses provided. And you're going to have to review that and see if you agree with that. Otherwise, everything has to be listed out and part of a new definition of a zone. So if you decide to apply this zoning district to a property for that development, it gets created as a new district. And basically they're sequentially numbered. So it'll be, SHP DOD 1, SHP DOD 2, and each one will be a separate district with the criteria that are adopted by the commission. So fundamentally what you're doing is a text amendment, map amendment, and site plan at the same time, and creating it that applies to a particular development. After you approve it, the developer has to submit to you a engineered site plan. And this is where the technical aspects of the development are hashed out, where the drainage is going, whatever. So your first process is dealing as a planning matter, dealing with the big picture stuff. And then the second process, you let all the technical experts get in and hash out the little details about where this invert goes, or et cetera. So in essence, what I want you to understand is that the process is actually very similar to how things work now if I need to ask you to change the regulations. It's just that it streamlines it and it changes the order of things a bit to make it a more efficient process for developers and for you. I do want to be clear that we're not wedded to any particular approach to getting from point A to point B in our development, so long as we get there in the end. We wanted to make the proposal to you in this way because we think it helps you, the committee, guide development in the Route 6 corridor going forward without having to go and relook at your zoning regulations for every development. I want to quickly address some of the comments from the staff memorandum. They mentioned New Haven and Shelton are two communities that use a similar process. I actually represented the city of New Haven in defending their planned development district process in front of the Connecticut Supreme Court. And we won. The Connecticut Supreme Court said this is a valid exercise of zoning authority that is no different than a combined map amendment, text amendment, and site plan. There was a recent email on the statewide planning listserv from my former colleague Dwight Merriam, who identified in his email 20 towns that use this style of development district. He was asking who else uses it for an article that he's writing. So it's not an uncommon process across the state. Importantly, in a place like New Haven, they are designed to apply across the city, not any particular zoning district. Anywhere in the city can take advantage of the process, whether they're adjacent or not. It's just properties that need special love and attention in developing to promote that economic development that you get out of developing property. There was a reference in the staff report to the Route 6 Corridor Overlay District which was adopted in 2007. And I think the public hearing you had earlier tonight was perfectly timed for us to point out that at the time, there was significant concern on the commission, of which I was a part, I believe, at the time, about multiple big box buildings on Route 6. That the target experience was fresh in everybody's mind, the litigation, the lawsuits against commission members individually. And so this requirement, I think, was put into the Route 6 corridor overlay study to emphasize that really we weren't looking for multiple big box stores along Route 6. But even at that, it's very specifically limited to retail, 95,000 square feet of retail. And obviously, we've made very strenuous points to you that we don't want a lot of retail in our development. I think we end up with two 8,000 square foot buildings, I think is what it are. So we're well below that. The affordable housing requirement of the zone, what I did was cut and paste the affordable housing requirement from the downtown transit-oriented development district. That requires 80% of the units be affordable to people who make, 20% of the units be affordable to people who make 80% of the state median income. That's different from the division and requirements set forth in 830G, which are 30% of the units and divided between people who make 60% or 80% of the higher of the area median income or the state median income. I'm not sure why you adopted a different standard in 2019 to apply to the Route 6 district, including the 60% units. But the two distinctions that are important for developers are the distinction between the area median income and the state median income. And the state median income generally right now is about $12,000 lower than the area median income. It's 96,000 versus 108,000. And so as a result, if you can use the state median income rather than the area median income, the area median income rather than the state median income, the maximum rents are higher, which is obviously better for a developer. And then the ability to only have 80% units is very important for the developer as well, because the 60% units end up being a loss, economic loss for the project. And I think the point is to provide affordable housing in a way that encourages developers to do it, rather than resorting to the statutory scheme. At the end of the day, these units count towards your 10% requirement while still providing the economic benefit to the developer. So as I've noted, we think this is a good approach for the commission. that will serve you well moving forward into the future. But at the end of the day, we don't really care how we get to the end point. And so if you're not comfortable with the plan development district aspects of this proposal, we can just pull them out. And what we would be left with is a request for you to create a floating overlay zone with the use requirements that we put in. We'll list the specific alterations to the Route 6 zoning district that we need, which frankly, the only one is parking. We're going to comply with basically every other requirement of the district. And we'll just do it as a request for you to apply a floating or overlay zone to our property. And then we'll make a map amendment application and a site plan application. But as I said, we think this is a better way to go. We think it'll help you as you go forward. So I'm perfectly happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Now you've made changes to the amendment that you submitted to us already, right?
I have not made any changes yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, but from what I just heard, it sounded like there were changes from what I have, this document I have in my hand now.
I've made no changes.
So they were just ideas that you had.
What I'm saying is that
You're
if
willing.
the commission's not comfortable with having a plan development district process, we can modify the application before you to just pull all that out. But we haven't done that yet because we think it's a good idea and we hope you think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Okay, would there be anybody from the public, David, that you see who have any questions on this?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay, then maybe we'll go right to commission members. John.
Wow, Peter, that's a lot. You did good here.
Yes, what?
I guess
so,
where I
too.
want to start is your overlay district allows 20 units instead of 10. So if you got 6 acres, this new overlay would allow 120 units on a parcel of 6 acres, correct?
Yes, and there's an additional bonus if all the units are provided as affordable, or 50% of the units are provided as affordable.
Okay, explain that part. I'm sorry, I didn't catch. So
Sure.
do that again.
So there's a base density
Yep,
of 20 units per acre,
yep,
which as I've noted is more than 10, which is the existing in the RT6
Right.
zone. But it is also less than 30, which is the proposal for the TOD zone, or the requirement for the TOZ zone. We're right in the middle.
right.
Of those 20 units per acre, there's an affordability requirement of 20% of the units have to be affordable.
Mhm.
In addition, you can have additional units, 5 units an acre. So on a 6 acre parcel, that's up to 30 additional units. But half of those units have to be affordable. So the point is you can build a little bit more, but you have to provide more affordable units. Does that make sense?
Yep, okay, good. And then, but your overlay gives no boundaries from the center line or Route 6 for residential, right? So you
Correct.
erase that completely.
Correct. That's the simplification. So in the existing district, in the front area, you can have residential density above commercial.
Yep,
Behind the line, you can have residential density that's on the first floor. So it could be townhomes or duplexes. And we erased it frankly because residential over commercial, as Bob noted, is a lender problem. It's the biggest red flag. They do not like it at all. And second, it becomes very difficult to build that type of a unit. So you can, and you know, we have some of it in our project, but if you have a 2-story building, you can only get a few units in there. And the person who lives there has to be physically able to walk up the stairs to get in and out of their unit. They're not willing generally to walk up to a 3rd floor or a 4th floor as you know, as is allowed in the zone. And so you have to build elevators in those buildings.
Mhm.
That makes it a much more expensive proposition. And so with that combination together, that type of style as much as I love it, and I think everybody loves the idea of, sort of a downtown feel of residential over commercial, it's just not that practical. So we've got a small amount of it that we think works, sort of. We'll rent those units to people who are willing to walk up a flight of stairs. And as Bob said, they're not even going to count that in our financing when we discuss that with them.
Okay, so that leads me into my next question. So us older commissioners that kind of lived the Route 6 study and lived, the expansion of Route 6 and how we envision between exit 8 and exit 9, we envision commercial. And I appreciate the application or the conceptual drawings coming in showing it looks commercial, right? So that looks really good. Now you make me nervous because I would hate for a developer to build commercial on the bottom and just forget it and think it's always going to have, craft paper on the windows and not be rentable, right? Because the vision is people walking down the sidewalk and using those spaces as retail, not just having it because Lenin said that would be nice to have. So, I want everybody to buy into this and say, well, yeah, we think this works, not hear that, oh, the bank's not going to give us money based on that revenue, because that scares me on a rental in 5 years.
John, it's Bob Gleason. Can I just answer that quickly? My feeling is we only build very nice stuff. So I have no intention of having a vacant commercial space. I feel bad that I think we will draw tenants that are in the area now in inferior buildings into our space, creating another empty space across the street, which was not what we're all hoping for here. So we are going to build a beautiful space and we are going to fill it, even if we have to do it at below market price, whatever that is at this point. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so I heard the buildings being 10,000 and it looks like there's 2 doors. So each unit would be what? 5,000? No, I'm sorry. Each grounds, one building, the commercial ground floor is how many square feet?
5,000 square feet with 4 apartments above them. And we have 2 of those buildings. So we have 10,000 square feet.
2,500 square feet. Take the mechanicals out, you got 2,000 square foot retails, right? In each building.
No, you have approximately if you take the mechanicals out, the building footprint is 5,000 square feet.
Right, so divide that in half.
5,000 square feet, four stores, John, on each.
Oh, 4. Okay.
Yeah, in each building.
Okay, and do you think that's to service the residentials in your development? What do you think that's going to attract as far as retail?
Honestly, I think we'll pull a restaurant of some type. Maybe we'll grab a restaurant. Maybe we'll get a tenant from the place right next door who's not happy and says, I get a brand new building for less money. I mean, we're going to, and frankly, we're in our mind, in our pro forma, we're using the rent from the residential upstairs to subsidize the commercial downstairs. And that's our pitch to our bankers as well. So we're counting the income there as very, very small, which gives us an opportunity to be very, very generous to somebody who's got a good idea. That's where we're coming from.
Okay, good.
And,
All right,
and
so-
John, a couple of other things to respond to your point is one of the reasons why the overlay zone has a flexible balance between commercial and residential is to respond to it exactly your questioning, which is how much commercial do we need at the point the application is sitting in front of you, and what types of commercial and what should it look like, and it's rather than putting in a defined ratio, which I don't think has worked. It allows the commission to examine what the proposal is before them. And so Bob's telling you that we think we can fill this. I tend to operate on a theory of if you build it, they will come. Be with this type of retail, that it's difficult for somebody to envision a space that isn't there for another year. But when the spaces are there and they can envision what's going to go in there, it becomes much more attractive to somebody to open that type of a business, a restaurant or a dry cleaner. They need something now because they're ready to open a business now. And yeah, I agree with Bob that we may be taking tenants from other spaces, and that's unfortunate. But on the other hand, maybe it encourages them to upgrade their buildings too.
And redo redevelopment, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a win-win for everybody.
And lastly, John, obviously, it will service all the people in Copper Square and all the people in this thing. So that's a good,
That's plus.
that's a big plus for any business that's coming into there, obviously.
Gotcha. All right, so I promise you, Madam Chair, this is my last question for the attorney. So the current regulations with the setbacks of residential currently allow you to have what? It's 10 units per acre, so that would be 60 units. And your current overlay gets, with the bonus, density bonus, gets you to what? 150? How many units does your text
That's
amendment allow on that 6-acre parcel?
That's the math, correct. But what we're not going to be asking for that many units because it becomes very difficult to fit them all on the site.
Which answers the parking question, because having a Dolan Plaza and the 2 apartment buildings behind them, we're very familiar with what the right parking area is, and being greedy for space and bites you in the butt if you don't have enough parking. And so we're going on the recommendations of Malone and McBroom. I think it's 1.7 per unit at residential is what they think is the sweet spot now. And that's where we are. So I think we're proposing 137 units,
But
including the 8 units that will sit above the 2 commercial buildings.
And the point, John, is just that I don't like to use weird numbers when I write zoning regulations.
And that's how you got the 20 and not 17?
20 plus 5, because otherwise you're at 17 plus 4 or, whatever. It just, weird numbers I don't like.
Very good. Thank you. I'm interested to hear what the other commissioners have to say. Kitty, thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, shall we go to Kenny Parsons, please?
Project looks really great. I like the way you're doing it, and it's pretty gutsy to put the commercial units in there with the way things are going. Is there any way we could get this project just the way it sits now without having to make these text amendment changes? Is there any way to get there?
No. As I've said, if you don't like the full plan development district process, that's fine. I can live with that. I can pull it out. But we still need to change the underlying zone to match what we're doing.
Right.
Because, pointing the finger at me, somebody asked you 8 years ago to change the district to go away from what was allowed, which was residential above commercial, to allow that residential to sit on the ground floor of buildings. That enabled the townhomes of Copper Square, they go all the way down to the ground, and the duplexes, which are just homes sitting on the ground. And the way that we did that is we drew a line across the property and said, behind this line can be that type of residential. And so what I'm trying to do in doing this as an overlay district is get rid of that without getting rid of it for the rest of the zone. And so you can act just on this property and say, this is appropriate to get rid of that requirement. And we'll do this little overlay zone that allows that. I think the plan development process is great and you'll like it and it'll work well. If you don't, let me know before you close the public hearing so I can submit a revision. But if you don't like it, then it's a very simple overlay zone that just says, these are the changes that are allowed, bring us a site plan application. That's how that would proceed. So it might be a slightly simpler way to do it, but it also ties your hands a little bit more as you go forward. Because the next project that comes in will ask you to do another overlay zone or, or change the underlying zone, and it just gets more and more complicated.
Do you have a fairly firm number on what total parking spaces you will actually have?
I think it's 274. If you give me a moment, I just want to search my email because somebody emailed that to me. 247, a little dyslexia there.
Okay. All right. That's all
Sorry,
I have.
that was just for the residential.
Sure.
But we think the commercial isn't going to require a huge amount, and the parking reduction processes in your regulations, we're just going to sort of adopt those to get to our parking requirement for commercial.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny. Okay, Linda Curtis?
Well, I like the looks of the, the conceptual drawing. I think it's very attractive. I think that you do have potential to get retail clients in there, specifically more service oriented, that are going to be able to take advantage of the residential units in the area. So I'm just not sure that I'm completely comfortable with the text amendment, but I'm open to hearing it.
Thank you, Linda. Rob Stoll? Rob Stoll?
I'm sorry, I had to unmute.
That's okay.
I gotta tell you, Peter, I like it. I think I need a little more time to digest the material, but I think it's a very creative solution.
I mean, we expect that you need some time to think about this. My only sort of request is that you let me know what you're thinking as you go through that process, so that I can adjust the regulation as needed before the public hearing is closed.
Thank you. Rob Wallace?
So I just want to understand what the commission's being asked to deliberate here. And so that, as I'm hearing it, it's really two issues. One is, the overall concept of this overlay district being applied to this property and potentially others in the future. And then the other issue is the specifics of the developer's proposal for this property, as far as the specific amount of increasing the residential density. So
sort of. We're not asking you to approve our development at this time. We are saying that, as you noted, that there's an overlay district concept, and as part of that can go one of two ways. What's in front of you tonight is to include a more flexible planned district concept, or to tell me, hey, Olson, we think that's dumb. In which case I would propose a very specific overlay district that wouldn't have the same planned district concepts in it. That's sort of number one. And now, as part of either of those approaches, what we're asking you to consider is allowing the commission to decide that a particular piece of property is appropriate for a change in density from the underlying zone, to go from 10 units to 20 plus 5. And to change in the underlying zone, the requirement that you have a specific amount of commercial square footage in relation to the size of the property, to change that to a much more generalized approach that says you need both, and we'll figure out how much when we get an application. Does that make sense? Did I just confuse it, or?
No, it does make sense. So this overlay district concept would apply to any property that would then apply in the future along the corridor?
The overlay district would exist in the zoning regulations as a possibility for development of property.
For any property along that corridor, and then would that
Not any property.
Okay.
There's a minimum lot size of 5 acres.
Oh, right, yeah, of course.
As staff noted, maybe 5 acres is too big. We don't care if you wanted to make it lower, but we think it's appropriate for that. Needs sewer and water, which probably all the properties have.
They all would.
It has to be a property with 140 feet of frontage, which is part of the underlying zone. Any of those properties could apply to you to apply this overlay zone to their property.
This specific overlay zone, or an overlay zone of their own based on their requirements?
That's whether we go path 1 or path 2. Right. If it's path 1, which is a planned district concept, they would say, here's the overlay zone we want applied to our property, and you would call it Stony Hill Plan District 1, Stony Hill Plan District 2, Plan District 3, whatever. If we go the other way, there won't be that option. It'll just be one overlay district that would get applied, and they either like it or they don't. they may ask you to amend it, but in either case, by doing it as an overlay district, you're not altering the underlying zone that applies to all the other properties in the zone. So it lets you be much more specific about how you pick and choose.
So another way of thinking about it would be that each property could have its own overlay.
It could.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks for helping me understand this. As Rob said, there's a lot to consider here.
Yes, as I noted, New Haven was sort of the progenitor of all of this. They have something like 63 planned districts since they've been doing it.
Great, thank you.
Kitty, can I? So
Please,
we
go
used
ahead,
to, back in the day, we used to call that spot zoning. And you guys assured me that there was going to be this new magical overlay district. What does that mean when we're in front of a judge and we say that particular property doesn't have enough commercial, but the one down the street we thought was just right? You know, how does that work, attorney?
Well, so the concept of spot zoning comes from a provision in the statute that requires uniformity throughout a zoning district.
Right.
However, spot zoning is more or less a dead concept today. So for example, there's a very recent case out of Newtown for the Tractor Supply building. Are you familiar with that development in Newtown?
Yep.
That's one parcel that was an application was made to change the zoning regulations for that one parcel. And they built it, there was an appeal, and the court said, nope, spot zoning is basically dead. I say basically dead because we could all envision some circumstance where it could be found. But the idea is that in today's day and age, the zoning commission need the flexibility to encourage development. And essentially, so long as there's a consistent, reasonable approach, the courts will uphold it. And so the specific answer to your question is, if you say today in 2021, this amount of commercial is appropriate for this property in this market, and then in 5 years, somebody comes in and says, hey, you know, it's even worse than it was in 2021, you may allow them to build less. Or they may come in and say, medical office is red hot, I need a huge medical office building. And those are allowing you to respond to the market conditions. And that's the type of thing that the recent jurisprudence on spot zoning has allowed commissions to do.
I knew you'd make me feel better. Thank you.
Don't make me feel better. Spot zoning is spot
I mean,
zoning.
without
and
being
will
a
always be
pointy-headed
spot
planner,
zoning.
without being a pointy-headed planner about it, zoning as a concept is under attack, you know, from many different
All
directions.
over the
That's
country.
just one of them, and that's just
I
one of
know
them.
it is. I know it is.
Right.
Thank you.
Peter, okay, let me just for instance, with the zoning we have right now, what could you build on that area?
Financially, nothing.
As it stands right now, how much development could you put in there?
10 units per acre.
Right.
So that's 60 something residential units. And then I think the number is 7,000 square feet of commercial per acre required. So we'd be required to build 42,000 square feet of commercial. And that's basically the approval from 2013.
Right. See, I have a big problem with that, with the overlay. I would rather look at our regulation and see what can be done there. To overlay something for each particular piece of property is spot zoning. I'm on this commission too long and remember it too much that it's a bad thing.
I will dig up the Tractor Supply case for you and submit it for the record.
Oh, I've seen the building. I've seen the area.
No, but the case, so you can read the case and see what the judges say about spot zoning. The issue is.
I don't doubt you.
So obviously I could draft revisions to the Route 6 zoning district that made the changes that I want to make. That got rid of the 250-foot line, that allowed an increased density. But what that does is change the regulations for every lot across the district. So
Right.
then I go to the next step, which is, well, can I draft this in a different way and say, okay, if you have a 5-acre parcel, you can have 20 units an acre. And that's when we get into overcomplicating your regulations. They become difficult to enforce. They make it difficult for the next person to come in and make changes. And you run into a similar problem of uniformity. And does it apply across the district? And so that's why, whether it's giving you a special process to handle these, or just saying, we're going to apply a small overlay that allows the change in residential and the commercial to this property because we think it's appropriate as a map amendment in our discretion, that's not going to be held to be spot zoning. That's the new way of the world, and courts are allowing it.
Okay, Beth, did you have anything to add today? Or
Yeah, just a couple of comments I wanted to make in regards to this. I understand Peter's concept. I would say 80%. I would say, number one, the proposal that you looked at this evening are absolutely fabulous. That his client has done a lot with the information that he has received from you as a commission, and it's so appealing. I think that my problem is really from a planning point of view. We've made several references to the TOD overlay within the town, but that was a result of a $250,000 study. There was a lot of planning that went into that. I see a lot of effort on the applicant's part in trying to address the residential aspects of it. But again, when David looked at the other regulations in the other cities or towns where this is applied for, there are some substantial issues, one being marketability study and economic impact analysis, things of that nature. We as lay people can sit here with this particular applicant and say, yes, times are changing, and I agree 100%. But at the same time, we can't look at it in the moment. We have to look at it for the future too. And I do think that all along, even though the variety of commercial has changed over the last 20 years, no, we don't want big box. We want a variety of commercial establishment. Oh, the economy's tanking. Oh, no, we've got to do a ratio or do something. We all see that as laymen. But my concern is that there should be more of a planning effort that goes into this while we try to develop this overlay zone or go back to doing it as a text amendments. I think that, there is an aspect that's missing from this in regards to the commercial component.
What do you think's missing, Beth?
What I think missing is the backup to saying, yes, we can go more residential. What is the economic impact of that to the town of Bethel if we increase the density to more residential and versus commercial?
Because this overlay would double the density of the
Correct.
residential. Yeah.
Correct. But at the same time, also, there was part of your discussion was dealing with we put in this beautiful development, which I do believe we do want overall. What impact will that have on the rest of Route 6? Picking up other businesses that are already existing there. All you have to do is look at the downtown area and the impact that Dolan Plaza, that the Grand has had on the existing structures and how improvements have been made. But again, that was based on a good planning study. Now,
Well, but isn't the theory the theory?
Say that again?
Isn't the theory, right? What fixed downtown was us incorporating more density of residential downtown to support the retail that was there. I mean, so the theory's the theory.
No, it wasn't a theory, it was a plan.
No, I'm sorry, but the theory of this is what's going to fix downtown.
I don't follow you, John.
When the studies came out and said, listen to me, if you put residential downtown, this is gonna fix your retail problem. And it worked. And that's the same concept that you would be incorporating with more density up in Route 6.
But it also worked, I think, because of walkability, because of transit and
Correct.
things that don't apply on Route 6 that we have to consider.
That's correct.
I would respectfully disagree with that. I mean, do we have to spend another $250,000 to see what worked? And as far as the transit district went, we've only built our 2 places. That's 52 units. That hasn't changed it immensely. I can't say that the businesses in Dolan Plaza are exploding now with 52 new tenants. And as far as the walkability, this site has almost more walkability than the Grand, because you have all right there. Grocery stores, the shopping center, 5 coffee shops, 2 Chinese places, all within a block. It's the Stony Hill Village that we're creating.
But that is a change, Bob, versus what our plans have said to begin with in pertaining to Route 6. We, as a planning commission, never looked at Route 6 as at the possibility of creating another downtown area out in that area. We looked at it as more of a service area of commercial entities. So now what we're doing is, because we are familiar with the TOD and what benefit it has served the downtown area, we're looking at trying to take some of those concepts out to Route 6.
So I think that the issue for me is at what point in the process should this discussion be had? And it's important in that respect to note that if you adopt the overlay zone and it becomes part of the regulations, that's not the end of the process for us. That the next thing we have to do is make an application to you to apply the zone to our property and demonstrate to you that the amount of commercial that we're providing is appropriate in relation to the residential that's provided. And so we can provide that type of an analysis to you as part of the next step of that process. What I'm a little concerned that I'm hearing after, we've been discussing the fact that we needed to increase the residential density on this property with both the commission and with staff for months now, that you think we should do a planning study now before this is considered. That's, I think, problematic for us because we're here now.
But also,
We're ready to move forward,
I would disagree with you, Peter, because as stated in the staff report, by you putting this application forward, we recognize the fact that when we incorporated that affordability component within the residential uses on Route 6, that we neglected to look at the potential of we should be doing an increase in allowable residential units, which I'm a firm believer of.
Yeah.
We never took that into consideration when we incorporated that 20%. We kept it at 10 units an acre.
So Beth.
And
time
that
is
should
money,
change
right?
to a higher number.
You started, your first comment was that you really liked what we've presented. And
Correct.
good project.
Absolutely.
So how do we get that over the goal line? That's where we're at.
That's right.
And what is your suggestion?
May I interrupt for a second? Were you finished, Beth? I think David had something to say at one point.
Well, I did, Kitty, thanks. But I don't want it to take away from, I don't want to tangent too much from where we are right now at this impasse, so to speak, of we have this concept which the applicant's efforts to present that to the commission tonight, it's noted and it's appreciated. But how do we get that to fit? But the question stands is, how do we get this concept, this idea for what this site could look like to fit with how Route 6 works, or what this plan text amendment, if the commission were to adopt it, how that would all fit together. I wanted to get back to the statement where we were as concepts. We get into specific numbers about the numbers of, residential units, parking area, retail units, what have you. The commission should consider the TOD zone. It factors lots where development has already occurred, i.e. The Grand and what happened there with the first building off of Grand Street, and then the second structure that happened behind Dolan Plaza. But there are plenty of other lots that haven't even been considered yet, whether it's formally before the commission or just part of what's, presented here to the land use office, where that TOD concept that you guys put in that $250,000 study could be shown to work. What I had tried to get across with how I have worded that marketability, that economic study in my staff report was, it's not meant to be specific for each parcel. You could have it that way if the commission's so inclined, but how does that study factor for the entirety of parcels that could be applied for this design overlay district? Mr. Gleason is saying that he's working with data for his financing back and forth to say, look, we're trying to get this parcel developed, and they have these numbers that they're working with to try to make it attainable. The commission should also have that, and it shouldn't be just for a single lot. That's not what my intention is. It should be for the design overlay district as a whole. When you had gone through to do this work for the TOD zone, you were looking at it as a whole, not on a parcel by parcel basis. And you could get specific with, each parcel, saying, okay, this one is here, this one is there, what do we think would best work for that lot, but without having the backbone that says, okay, there's data that supports us going and intensifying the residential density, or having something that can support a commercial component. Peter had mentioned the word guidance. Without that data, where is your guidance? Is what I would say the commission should be questioning when you're talking about this stuff. You could get into the specifics. It's been mentioned a great deal, and I it was also mentioned by Attorney Olson that 20 other towns have adopted a planned development district similar to what is being proposed before you tonight. I unfortunately only found 5 of those, apart from the 2 that were discussed in Peter's or Attorney Olson's statement of reasons to you guys. But I can't imagine that none of those 20 design development districts would have ever been approved without something that said, let's look at what the district's trying to do as a whole. Where is this data being driven from? Why does it work? And how will it affect, parcels that are along Route 6 in general? Yes, right now it's, as it's worded, it's targeted towards parcels that are 5 acres or greater. And, right now there's discussion to possibly, amend that in some way before this public hearing closes. Regardless of how that's done, the data that you guys, the information that you guys work with should support that it works for any parcel in the district you know, as a concept. Like I said, that's where we were with the TOD. And I think with how successful, you know, it's been with the parcels that have been developed so far and the parcels that can be developed in the future, that shouldn't be something that's overlooked.
Thank you. Beth, do you have anything else to add?
I think at this point, I don't want to get into the affordable aspect of this and the changes that are proposed. I'd rather go offline and have that discussion with Attorney Olson.
Okay. Is there anything else anybody else has to offer tonight?
I do.
Oh,
Yes,
please go right ahead.
I do.
As I said, I'm concerned about the raising of this issue at this point. I just checked back at my calendar and we started talking about this group of people acquiring this property back in June. And so we're 3.5 months into a process. We've made an application. And I think the suggestion is that we need to pause and engage in a study on the scale of the TOD, which took a year and cost $250,000, to get to the point where we agree that density should be increased in the zone. And maybe in general, I can see the attraction of that, but it certainly sticks a fork in our project for a very long time. And that's really problematic for us. You know, if the thought at the beginning had been, you need to demonstrate to us that that density should be increased, we would have been working on that for 3 months, and we'd have that evidence for you. But I guess I'm just a little frustrated that it gets raised after we're sitting here.
But wasn't that the issue all along?
Well, can I?
You're just really looking at what we're
But we had preliminary
considering
meetings
are
with the
getting into that
commission.
goal of the density that you want.
Yeah, but we had preliminary meetings with the commission where we were telling you this is what we're doing.
Right.
And
That's
and nobody said to us, you need to go do a study to prove that that's appropriate.
No, I follow you there.
I think we just kind of assumed that, you know, the same concepts that applied in the TOD are going to apply out here. We've got sidewalks that are getting built. We have bus transportation. You know, it's a similar concept. And okay, it's not a downtown, but it's supposed to get there. So that's my concern about responding to that, I guess, request. Is it's a major problem for what we're trying to do. If we think that what we're trying to do is okay, then let's move forward. And you know, fine, no, we'll cut out the plan district stuff and just leave it simple for you.
I'd like to say something.
I think Gary Michael would like to say something.
Yeah, Gary Michael, I live at 52 Deer Hill, Danbury, Connecticut. Dave had mentioned that they're looking for data with regard to what should be done on Stony Hill. The Rubinos looked for data with their marketing of their property for 8 years. Okay, they got their project approved and the market conditions basically dictated what was to be developed there. And obviously commercial didn't work and residential on top of commercial doesn't work because nobody bought the project. That's number one. Number two, basically, John is right. The concept of the transit district, we were the guinea pigs. We were the first one when Steve Palmer asked us to do residential in downtown. He was a proponent of the transit district and Beth was as well. That process works. Basically, it provides residents and it helps the commercial tenants in a district. Stony Hill has sidewalks, has site lighting, has small shops, has major grocery stores, has pizza parlor, has banking. It has all the components that we're trying to do. Now for you to say we need a study, you sound like bureaucrats. And I understand that you have the best interest of the town at heart. But look at what has transpired in the last 10 years on this parcel of property. That's what I'm saying. John is right. The fact that the downtown transit zone worked, it was because residential development was the impetus to get people into the stores and the restaurants. Thank you.
Kitty, can I jump in, Kitty?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So the commission has to remember how we got here. And I've been here for a long time, but when an application comes in with a conceptual plan and says, how do you like it? And we send the applicant off saying, yeah, we like it. Because I remember that meeting and we all said, our vision is to have commercial on Route 6, but but history is important. Okay, Peter, this is where the property has a little bit of a problem, right? The Rubinos developed it, okay, but they developed the entire parcel, which was a very deep parcel. All the parcels that are developable out in Route 6 are well in the 500-600 feet depth, where when you and I debated that residential shouldn't be 270 feet from the center line, that worked. They already grabbed that density, okay, and developed the residential. It's sold because that's what everybody likes to do, okay? So now we have a little bit of a problem because how deep is that property now? It's probably what? Only under 400 feet deep, right?
Less than that, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Right. So now we have that, right now our current regulation says, okay, you can't put a residential unit within 270 feet from that center line. So it creates a problem for this parcel because what happened before, okay? But, so that's the history. But moving forward, 3 months ago, when we all looked at this property that we've been looking at the for sale sign for the last 10 years, we said, we need to give this developer the tools to be successful. And as a commissioner, we all looked at it, and I probably said, if you like the concept and you're sending them away with liking it, you better like it when they come back. And I think that's where we are today. I know that we're wrestling density, but I think my recommendation would be we continue this public hearing, all the commissioners really chew on it and think about from 10 to 20 and a bonus density, what that does. But I think the commissioner told the developer that as long as you made it look commercial, we're in favor of something. So I think that's important to say. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That is terrific.
John, that's clearly our recollection. We've spent a lot of money to get to this point. And I also want to talk about our resume. We are good citizens of Bethel. We remodeled the Dolan Plaza in a pandemic. We are taking a piece of property that has sat there for 10 years vacant, and we want to build something beautiful on, which every single one of you has just said it looks beautiful. And I think you discredit yourselves by calling yourselves laymen because you've been doing this for a long time. And you know what good zoning is, and you know what bad zoning is, and you know where mistakes have been made in the past and where you can correct them. This is a clearly easy correction for this piece of property. And that's why you all said 3 months ago on June 22nd, I like it. And you said, keep the commercial look on Stony Hill. The density doesn't bother us. The density is what's going to pay for the thing. And the density is what the town of Bethel needs. People living here, shopping at our stores.
John, can I jump in here real quick? Right. So the density is important, but I think there's two words that should also be factored in to when the commission's looking at this text amendment, and that's mixed use. For what the commission did with the plan of conservation and development, for what was done at this point over 14 years ago with the Route 6 study, both of those documents emphasized that mixed use development had potential on the Route 6 corridor. Go ahead, Mr. Marker.
David, 14 years ago doesn't matter. It's gone. That doesn't matter anymore. The market, capitalism matters. People, what they decide to work at home and not work in an office matters. people that decide to shop at Amazon now, which didn't exist 14 years ago, matters. All those things matter. And everybody sitting here knows how they shop and how they live, and they have friends that have lived in apartments and sold their houses. The studies say there's a 2,600 apartment shortage in the greater Danbury area right now. The studies do not show there is a commercial or professional space shortage. That's common sense. We don't have to spend $50,000, $200,000 to get to that. We've already got to that by the fact that the property sat there vacant for the last 8 years.
David, let me answer to your density. We don't even have to go back 14 years, Route 6 study, the TOD, you know, all of the studies we did on Route 6. In June, the developer came and said, I have this concept. They didn't own the property yet, but they came to us in good faith and said, look, we want to do something. And they had this picture with no commercial. And we said, listen to me, we understand times change, and this is what we want. And I'm looking, we all looked at the picture and said, wow, that looks nice. And but the important part is there's commercial on Route 6 and there's no parking lot. So I don't know where we go from now, but I think as a commissioner last June, when they came with a conceptual plan and we sent them packing and said, we want more commercial, so it gives the visual of commercial, I assumed that eventually they were going to look for more density in residential. That's what the equation, how the equation worked, that they needed more density. Did I say it was, I didn't think it was 300. I don't know what the number was. That's why I'm harping on we're about 130 with the new overlay, but I knew it was more than 60. So I don't know.
Kitty, may I?
Great
Oh,
discussion.
yeah, please, yeah, I was just going to say, go ahead.
Okay, I think that we're all, I'm going to go back to what Peter had said. I think we're all in agreement that we like this drawing. I don't think that anyone has expressed an issue in regards to the density that is proposed.
No.
It goes back to what Peter Olson said to begin with. How do we get there? Through the regulations. That's the bottom line.
Beth, not to
Okay.
interrupt Beth, but did you say, I'm hard, did you say nobody's disagreeing with the density of residential?
I'm saying that no one has expressed an issue with the proposed residential.
Okay, what about the unit count? I thought that this last hour was all about the number of units that the new overlay was going to allow.
The new overlay, basically, from what I understand, what they're proposing to do is overlay with 20 units with a density bonus, 20 unit. Peter, please correct me if I misunderstood. The bottom line, plus 5.
Per
Correct,
acre.
Peter?
One moment. Let me just put this up. So I just want to go through this quickly. Base residential density, 20 units an acre, rounded up to the next whole number. Plus 5, provided half of it's affordable. But there's 2 caveats to this. The first is those are maximum numbers, maximum residential density. Doesn't mean that's what you're building. And second, this paragraph down here, each district must provide both commercial uses as provided in subsection 1 and residential uses in a location, configuration, and proportion as the commission shall deem appropriate given the circumstances of the land. And that's why I made the comment that if there's a question about whether or not the density that we're proposing is appropriate, that the place to resolve that is when we make the application with our conceptual plan and our request to apply this zone to our property. And we can provide you with, marketing studies and the information that Bob and Gary have both been talking about to demonstrate that the number of units that we're proposing, which will be about 137, is appropriate, and that the amount of commercial square footage that we're proposing, which is about 10,000 square feet, is appropriate. And we can do that as part of that process. And so we can keep this process moving along without taking a pause and taking a step back to say, well, is 20 the right number? And that's what I'm suggesting is the way to move forward with this. Now, we should probably take a break tonight because I think everybody's got a lot that they have to think about and come back at the next meeting and keep talking. And we'll put our heads together and see if we got some suggestions.
Okay.
But that's sort of my fear is if we say we have to decide whether 20 is appropriate, then who's going to pay for that study? How long is it going to take? And, essentially you're killing a project for a year if you do that.
Okay.
And that's what I'm really worried
Peter,
about.
okay, I would like to just interject, please excuse me, Peter. Again, so the other part that I want to add to what you've just stated here now, as far as up to 20 units, I am a firm believer in a mixed use concept for the Route 6 area, that there should be a minimum requirement for a commercial. So, we have a maximum, we have a number out there for 20 units plus, but there should be a minimum requirement.
So,
Also along the
if I can
same lines,
If I can respond to that really quickly,
go ahead.
I don't have a problem with a minimum as long as it meets what we've proposed thus far.
But that's not your decision, that's the commission's decision. They can take your regulation and amend it as they so desire. And they could say the minimum requirement for the commercial portion is 10,000 square feet.
Yes, they can. And we would be okay with that.
Okay. Secondly,
But I would also point out that having a minimum requirement in the regulations hasn't really worked. It didn't work as I envisioned it, certainly, for this property or for the diocese property. And there's been no other attempt to apply it. So, I would ask whether that's evidence that we shouldn't have one, if the commission's going to consider that. So
I think that it's more palatable for the commission to consider it. In order for them to have some type of feeling that this is their vision for Route 6, what you've been discussing all evening. Commercial on the first floor along the sidewalk with residential up above. The second part of this, I do believe that some of the components are missing from this proposed regulation pertaining to what has been, was incorporated in the city of New Haven and city of Shelton.
yes, I modeled the.
You stuck with the residential. You didn't
no,
address the other areas.
I modeled the requirements for the conceptual plan submission on Shelton.
Okay.
Some of that language is directly from the
All right.
regulation, but I definitely stripped some of it out. And the
Yes.
reason is I felt that the Shelton regulation required a massive investment upfront in the conceptual plan.
Okay.
And that makes it very expensive to put something forth that you have no guarantees that a commission is going to like or accept or approve.
I understand.
So a lot of that stuff, I just said, you know what? If the commission wants it, there's a provision here that says the commission can ask for something in connection with the conceptual plan. The commission can ask for it, but it shouldn't be a base requirement to do all the studies that they had in there. Those are much more appropriate for a site plan phase, for example. So that's why that's stripped out.
Okay. Okay, I get that. Thank
I
you.
plagiarized from Shelton, but I didn't include everything from Shelton.
Okay. Thank you.
And that is a criticism I've heard from attorneys who work in Shelton, is that it's a lot to get an application together for that. And that is a dampening factor on whether people use it or not.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Okay, so Peter, your sentiment from before. We have a lot here to digest, and I don't think we're looking for a year study. I really don't. But right now, I think we've had a lot to digest here, and I think keeping this open for the next hearing would be the appropriate thing to do right now.
I always assumed that would happen, so.
Good.
Agreed.
Okay, well, having said that, thank you very much. And we're going to keep this hearing open until our next meeting, our first meeting in October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And now we go to our business meeting, where I think we can sit all of our alternates. We'll sit Rob for Rich Tibbetts, Linda for Pat Rist, and Rob Wallace for Bob Legner. Okay, the first item on our agenda is the minutes. Could I have a motion, please, for the minutes?
So
moved.
Okay, that was Linda, and who seconded it?
Rob Stoll?
Go ahead, Rob Stoll. Excellent. Okay, so that's taken care of. All right, now we're moving on to new business. M.E. Coberry, Executrix of Estate, text amendment, non-conforming parcel 6 Peck Lane.
Yes, you have another text amendment. Attorney Olson is here this evening representing the applicant.
No.
Excuse me, we didn't really vote on the minutes. We just,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
You're absolutely right. Thank you. Okay. We had a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those against? Those abstaining? Motion passes. Thank you very much. It's been a long night, folks. Okay, Peter, the floor is yours.
I will just give you a brief explanation and save the real story for the public hearing. Staff has no involvement in this application. I just made it without any discussion with staff, really. Prior to 2010, you had a provision in your regulations that required non-conforming parcels that were adjacent and owned by the same person to be merged for zoning purposes if they had met certain criteria for being undersized for lot area or something like that. So if I had two parcels next to each other, one of which conformed and one didn't, I didn't get to build two houses on it. I only got to build one. In 2010, when you did your comprehensive rewrite of the regulations, that provision changed to include any nonconformity. And that specifically meant lots that had no frontage now were considered to be merged. And believe it or not, this has become an issue in multiple matters that I'm working on. This particular one is property located at Peck Lane. There were 4 lots that pre-existed zoning with their own descriptions, and this change merged the lots into one. And unfortunately, what's happened is by making that change, you've put the property underwater because they can't sell it for what it's worth at this point. So this is a text amendment, which I'll explain in the hearing, to throw ourselves on the mercy of the commission to revert the change, to allow us to sell our 4 lots as individual lots. So I just ask that you set a public hearing for it, and we'll go through it in detail.
Can I ask one silly question before we start? Where's Peck Lane?
Peck Lane is off of Chestnut Ridge Road. It is just past Gretchen Lane.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
know where the frog is?
Yes, I do.
It's just up there. It's not an actual road. It's just a driveway, but it's called Peck Lane. It may have been a road 100 years ago, but.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was sitting here and I'm confusing myself.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, could we have a motion, please? For what, do you have a date set, Beth, for this?
On November 9th.
Okay, so could someone
like to
make a motion, please?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we schedule a public hearing for a text amendment. Are we giving this text amendment a title, Peter?
It's to section 7.1C3, I think.
Excellent. Nancy was taking good notes. I could see that. And I'd like to send it out to all appropriate town agencies for review before the public hearing. That's my
Right,
motion.
second?
Thank you.
Kitty, did you second?
No, I said, could we have
I
a
think
second?
Kenny was going to second it. Yeah.
Kenny, okay.
Kenny, okay.
John and Kenny. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Abstain? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kitty, I have
Right.
2 items. I don't show up on the agenda, but I have 2 items to go over with you this evening.
Go ahead, please.
I'd like to have somebody make a motion to add a bond release for Bethel Crossings to the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, John. Second,
second,
Rob Stoll. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
What was the amount of the bond? Oh, I'm sorry, that's right.
Okay, so Bethel Crossings has completed their project. Their
Oh.
sign-offs have been completed throughout the town. One thing I will note is the storm drainage that was put in across Plum Trees Road is just absolutely fabulous. The only time
Absolutely.
we've had an issue was this last storm, which was a little bit over 100-year storm. So I'd like to ask the commission to consider releasing their bonds for Bethel Crossing 1 in the amount of $74,853. and for Bethel Crossing number 2 in the amount of $38,000. Again, as-bills have been submitted, sewer and water's been accepted, all the easements, the sign off for all the drainage and things like that. It's not like me just saying, hey, they're done. There's all this backup material pertaining to it.
And more importantly, they've been tested. So I would like to make that motion. Nancy, you have the numbers and how you would draft that. That would be my motion. Thank you.
I'll
Second.
second that.
Thank you, Rob.
Hey, beat you to it, Ken.
It's Rob. Thank you, Rob.
Okay. All those in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Those
I'm trying to
against?
speed it up.
Thank you.
Okay. The second item I have is there is another developer that would like to come in and speak with you as a commission with a concept plan pertaining to property. I believe the proper address is 97 Stony Hill Road. It is the Frank piece. It's a combination piece between the town of Bethel and the town of Newtown, composed of approximately 35 or 40 acres. We've been working again with them for a couple of months. They'd like to go over their concept with you. What I'm looking for is one of the meetings in October, because you guys are busy with these public hearings. If there's the possibility we could do a meet at 6:30. Let them come in for 15, 20 minutes, discuss this concept with you before you continue on with your public hearings.
It'll either be the 12th or the 26th.
That's correct.
So which one would you?
No, I'm asking you guys, first of all,
Okay.
about the idea of coming in at 6:30. Or
Yeah, sorry.
I'm
zooming
okay
in
with
at
that.
6:30.
Yeah,
I
Zoom
remember we
away.
used to come in at 6:30 and get pizza, but I guess we're not doing that now.
Saving a couple of bucks. I'm real happy about that.
What did you call the
Just
door?
order your own pizza and have them deliver it, John.
Yeah.
You can watch each other eat pizza.
If I can just put in that if we can schedule it for the latter date, because
Okay,
I'm scheduled to work till 7 on the first one.
Oh, okay.
October 26th. That would be fine with us, everybody. Plus, it's the day after Columbus Day weekend. If people are going away, Tuesday, you're going to be busy with the P&Z
Right.
meeting. I don't know how you feel about a 6:30. So let's say the 26th of October
Okay,
with those
so
present
you want
now.
a
Is that
need a
agreeable?
Motion?
Should be fun.
All right, I'll try that. And I'll be in touch with you about that. And that's all I have. Thank you very
Okay.
much for this evening's conversations. It was very good.
So any public input here, folks? Hello? No public input?
PJ, BJ,
Wake
can you
up.
say hi?
Hello? Say
Hello?
hello.
No comments.
Thank you, BJ. Any commission members have any comments?
I do. So when this applicant comes in about the Stony Hills, and they really ask our opinion, we have to give them our honest opinion on what we feel. I feel like we always drag these people to the water, but then we don't let them drink it. So it's important to be honest and give your honest opinion when they ask it.
To that point, I'll just add, I don't see anything incompatible or a problem with the density that they're proposing or anything else. The question is, as a commission, what's the precedent that we set? By what mechanism we choose to do that, to give them the density that they're looking for? What are the impacts down the road? And that's the only thing that I'd like to see us as a commission consider.
And I could appreciate that, but we closed that public hearing, so we shouldn't talk about that application. I just mean in general, when somebody says, how do you like my picture? If you say you like it, you better like it in 3 months. I just want to say that. All right.
Okay, John. Sounds good. Somebody want to make a wonderful motion here, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, John. Second?
Third.
Fourth? Good night, everybody.
You got to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to bed.
Aye.
Okay, motion to approve.
Aye.
Aye. No? Anybody want to vote no?
Adios.
Anybody want to abstain? Good night.
Good night. Thank you very
Good
much, everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Wait a minute.